Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. At this time, I will reconvene the La Quinta City Council meeting for Tuesday, September 16, 2014. At this time, I'd ask that you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Place your hand over your heart and repeat with me, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on the agenda is a public comment. Anybody wishing to speak on an item which is on the agenda, I'd ask that you please fill out a request to speak form like this. It's at the back of the room, and give it to our city clerk up here. At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so. I do have 3 requests, and if you would be so kind as when I call your name, come up to the podium, give us your name and address for the record, and if you could keep it to 3 minutes, we would appreciate it. Hal, is it Say?
See, I think you said. Sing.
Oh, see? Oh, here it comes. Okay.
I'm coming again tonight to talk about Anthony Marino and the corruption involved, like I told about.
Give us your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry, Hal Edward C., 52441 Avenida Diaz. On September 30th, 2013, about 11:45, Anthony Marino states that I came into City Hall and made a inquiry status, which I think Linda knows about, and then goes on about rambling later on in the afternoon, about 2:30 or 3:12 in the afternoon, on an item on this page right here. He said he also went out to the property at the same time, 12:01. So from 11:45 to 12:01, he wrote the site and went out and investigated the property. Now, I said he committed perjury, and I'm here to prove it tonight. On this statement here, Anthony Marino states at 11:45, he was out at the city at the same address inspecting a wooden fence. How can you be in 2 different places at the same time? Now, he told the police officer 2 weeks ago when I was in here to have him, a citizen arrest, playing it on him, that these were times they were input. How can you input a time at starting at 11:45 when the input time on this one shows he also input at 3:12, same day? I don't know where it's coming from, but I said I would bring the proof, and here it is today. I said this never happened. Remember, from day one, I've said this never happened. And here's the proof. I don't want to get involved anymore. I walked away a long time ago, but I have some people here that just need to be resolved, some issues. And I thank you very much for your time. Oh, one more thing. Another thing that came up, and some fraud that I originally discovered, that's why he retaliated with this thing with my name, was on the 25th I stopped by City Hall to see if he mailed a check to the resident for $25 where he'd won his initial court case 3 years or 4 years prior, which was still an issue. At that time, I asked about some pictures that he had received from Tom Hartung, and there were some missing photographs in sequence. So you have 1, 2, 3, then 4, 5 might be missing, then 6, 7, and so on. And he said that they didn't exist, and that's when he revealed to me that they were part of a second court case where they didn't have all the evidence required by Judge Hopp, but they continued on with the fraud. Okay? And that fraud continues here when it says, from a letter from Lieutenant Tucker to the homeowner, requesting the existing photographs taken on May 24th, May 25th, 2010. The claim for those photographs required to demonstrate you maintained an operative vehicle in section blah, blah, blah. Based on conversations I had with city staff, it appears while these photographs were in fact taken, they couldn't find them. In my opinion, if they don't find them, they can't exist. How can he proceed to cite a citizen in our city without proof that the judge has required from case 1? I don't know. I'm not asking for your opinions. You discuss it. But this, I have more proof if you like it. If you want to continue, I'll just go on with my citizen's arrest. I don't deal with it. I don't feel like dealing with it. I got other things to deal with, but this is something I've been adamant about back from January 2011, I was here discussing an issue over ethics and morals, same issue. And of course, I had to come back and correct that one, which I believe Frank, or no, I don't see him here tonight, Les remembered me from that one, a long time ago, and so did Linda spoke up, and you too. And I appreciate your time, and I hope you really, if you would take the time to come talk to me privately. I don't want to get any more involved, but I'd be happy to talk with each guys and just direct you to it. And one more thing, he has total direct control, in my opinion, of all these records. Nobody else does. Check with Lynn or Susan, I don't know for sure, but I can't get access to a lot of the records. So, and thank you.
Okay, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Bob Horn?
Yes. My name is Bob Horn. I live at 73500 Red Circle in Palm Desert, California. Been out here about 40 years. I'm speaking about two things. First of all, I want to commend the City Council for supporting my first 501c3, which is Red Hot Ballroom. You've been supporting us real well. It started with the district attorney who said we need to get the arts back into the school, and so Red Hot Ballroom does that. We're now in the Valley, as an update, we're in 40 schools in all 3 school districts. We go from Salton Sea to Desert Hot Springs, about 2,000 kids in the program. And since you started us off, way back when, we have probably put about 4,000 or 5,000 kids out there with respect for each other, self-esteem, and good things. But what I'm here to speak about is in the Westfield Mall, we have just acquired a building on the north side by the theater. It was an old daycare center, and we're working with kids that are even more important. They're kids with special needs, kids with autism. One kid out of 16 in the world has autism. They're very shy. They sit in the back of the room. They drop out of school. They have all kinds of things they're dealing with, but mostly it's shyness. And so we're going to be working with them, teaching them ballroom dancing. The ones that don't speak, we're going to get them ukuleles and teach them how to play and sing and get their voices back. We're going to be working with the kids with Asperger. Albert Einstein had Asperger's syndrome. He couldn't make change on a subway, but he could do all kinds of genius things in math. So I came out of Caltech, JPL. I've got scientists out here retired that want to come in and mentor these kids in their genius in math and science. Could use your help, hands, muscle, whatever you might have for us, but it's quite a program. Any questions?
Questions? No. Good, yeah. No, I think it's a great program, and what you're doing with the kids with autism is great.
Yeah, it's changing lives actually, because up till now most of the groups supporting autism are what I call pat on the back groups. Hang in there, Mom. We don't have a cure yet, but we're going to actually be changing their lives. If they can be dancers, musicians, singers, why, who knows? It's all through music.
You not only change it, you improve their lifestyle.
Exactly. That's what it's all about kids. We start with the seed, and then we have a better tree, don't we?
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Darla Burkett. Yeah, there she is.
Well, I am here to thank you all so
Darla,
much for...
name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Darla Burkett, 47470 Van Buren, Indio, California. I'm here to thank you for the wonderful gift of supporting the Coachella Valley Rescue Mission in such a substantial way of $50,000 for operations, $50,000 for the annex building that we're building now, and just for your support and friendship in our community. I brought some statistics with me. Recently we had a backpack drive at the rescue mission. We gave away, we had 2,500 children there the last Saturday of the month in August, and we had 560 kids from La Quinta that received backpacks. Last year at Christmas time, we had 1,170 children receive Christmas toys with us. Several of those kids got a new bike in our bike drawing that we have. We helped 5,000 children on that day at the Christmas giveaway. Last month, the month of August, we had 74 La Quinta residents come to the mission. 7 are now in our Gateway program, living with us, getting their jobs back in order, getting their lives back in order for a variety of reasons. 4 of them are men, 3 of them are women. We have 1 family in our family center from the city of La Quinta. 48 families came for food boxes each week, the week of August, and 79 hot meals were served to families in need in the month of August from the city of La Quinta that just don't have enough to eat, that just don't have enough to get through the end of the month. So we're growing that number all of the time. I gave a homeless man a ride to work the other day from behind Circle K to get help, and we're grateful to be there for the community, for this community. And I'm so grateful to each one of you, and my board of directors also extends their gratitude to you for doing what you've done for us. This is the first city, the city of La Quinta, that has ever given on a level of this nature, this substantial. The highest gift we've ever had from a city is $25,000. So you set a wonderful precedence here, and I'm grateful for you. Thank you.
Well, Darla, you do a wonderful job down there, and it serves the community and those in need. And that's the important thing.
Yes. Thank you so much, all of you.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I have for just public comment. Anybody else wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to confirmation of agenda. Are there any changes, additions, or deletions by staff?
Yes,
Frank?
Mr. Mayor. We recently received and been able to prepare some preliminary damage estimates as a result of direct costs that the city has incurred since last Monday's storm event. And as such, what we would like to have you do is add an item to item B1 for consideration, because we need to appropriate funds in order to handle the services that we have underway. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2B2, we request that the City Council consider adding to its agenda this evening to item B1 an appropriation from the city's reserves to the city's general fund in an amount of $350,000. The appropriation would be to a fund we're entitling the Flood of 14 Recovery Fund. And when we get to item B1, we will be requesting that you consider moving that funding from our general fund reserves to that fund accordingly.
You have the motion to accept the agenda item?
That's correct. And if I may remind the council, because this is an item that is added to the agenda, we will need 4 out of 5 at a minimum to approve adding it to the agenda, and then it will be considered later on.
A major majority.
Second. So move approval.
Okay.
Second.
I thought we were going to do this when we got to the emergency. Not, you want to do it now?
We're just adding it.
Just add it.
That's
Just
the
add it?
motion to add it.
Just motion to add.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
correct.
well, okay. There's been a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes.
May I ask a question? Is this considered an urgency item or something?
Yes.
That's why we can get around the Brown Act.
Yeah, this is a specific provision in the Brown Act that allows something like this to be added because the information was not available, namely the amounts, until after the agenda went out.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. Council, any changes? Any changes? Okay. All right, we'll move on to consent calendar.
Move consent calendar.
Moved in second. Bill, you want to make a comment regarding, we have an issue with signatures, and you know, there's been changes in regards to voting on issues that were in close proximity that we dealt with at PGA West, and I just thought to make sure that there was no conflict with, because signatures is beyond 500 feet of my house, but still we might have had a little bit of a problem, so I just want to make sure I checked with the city attorney, and so you might want to make an announcement.
Sure, I'll make an announcement. As the mayor referenced, there was a general ruling that for purposes of determining a potential conflict of interest, the ownership, being part of a homeowners association, was to be included in the 500-foot radius when determining whether or not to recuse oneself in participating in a particular decision. The Fair Political Practices Commission has adopted new regulations that specify that 500-foot radius is to be determined from your actual residence, and you do not include any homeowners association or property. And I discussed this with the mayor, and no other potential conflicts of interest seem to arise, so it's okay for him to participate in that matter.
And this refers to consent item number 9, where we're
Yes.
approving the final map and subdivision improvement agreement with the signature developer within PJ.
And that also
Correct.
gives me the same right and privilege as he has.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull consent calendar item number 10 and add it as B2.
Okay.
Okay.
So move consent as amended.
Okay.
Yeah, that's amended.
And was there a second?
Yes.
Second? Okay. Please vote. Motion passes. All right, move on to business session. We have now 2 this evening. First one is adopt a resolution to declare local emergency, request govern to proclaim state of emergency, request concurrence by California Office of Emergency Services, and approval temporary waiver of building permit fees for work resulting from flood damage. Staff report?
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. That's correct. We've had a serious rainstorm that occurred on September 8th, last Monday. Many private homeowners, businesses, and the city experienced very severe damage to their properties. We have recommended actions for you this evening. We think they're warranted. We are requesting that you proclaim the existence of a local emergency. We are requesting the governor to proclaim the city a state of emergency, and we're requesting concurrence in the proclamation of local emergency to the California Office of Emergency Services. In addition to that, to help those residents that are having challenges with their homes, we'd like to ask you to approve a temporary waiver of building permit fees and to authorize expedited permit processing for repair work associated with the flood damage of September 8th. To give you a little bit more detail regarding this situation, we do have some photographs. Many of you have seen these photographs. Some of them are specific to public facilities, but you can see that there is very severe flooding. And the reason that we're asking for this situation is because the county looks at this in its entirety. There is a threshold of $7.5 million countywide, and other cities are making application as well for the public facilities portion of this disaster relief. So we're a portion of it, we are not all of it. Right now, the information that we have, both for individual damages and public damages, total $7.9 million. We have $4.9 million in damages to private properties, and this is the information that's been available to people calling in and letting us know the level of damage they've experienced. These are their estimates so far. The public damage assessment estimates are just over $3 million. So we're seeing some pretty serious issues citywide. We do have the county emergency operations team that is here today that can speak to some of the specifics with this act and to give more information about thresholds, the public assistance portion and the individual assistance portion, should you want that this evening. We do have Mark Bassett here that can answer more detailed questions than we can as city staff, and they're available to be able to answer those questions should you have them. That concludes my staff report. We also had the issue that we brought forth just before at the beginning of the meeting about the appropriation of undesignated reserves for the $350,000 for public facilities to go into a fund to help start immediate repair of some of those public facilities, primarily our streets, where sinkholes have occurred and other damages to city property. That concludes my staff report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, questions to staff. Christie?
I have a comment first and then a question. The comment is that I wanted the audience to know that 18 of the city staff's cars were totaled. The parking lot flooded, and so staff is sharing a lot of their woes with other people in the community too. But that's one thing I just wanted to put out there. But the second thing is, in terms of folks filing for help or whatever, how does that process work?
I'm going to ask the emergency operations manager for the county. His name is Mark Bassett, and he can speak to that more specifically than I can, council member.
Okay.
Please.
Good afternoon, Mayor Adolph, members of the City Council. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. I know this event was pretty horrific.
Could you kindly give us your name?
I'm sorry, Mark Bassett,
Okay, Mark.
Emergency Services Manager for Riverside County Fire Department's Office of Emergency Services. I apologize for that. Sorry.
Introduce yourself.
Okay. But again, this event was very horrific for a lot of people, and unfortunately, these type of events occur. We were talking earlier about Katrina and how bad that was. For some people, this event was their Katrina, just because of some of the stresses that will cause. And there are many programs that the federal government has that can assist, but they're very pointed as far as how to do that. As mentioned, there is the public assistance, which the city, as far as any of the public infrastructure for the city, any special districts, the county departments, anything that's out there, that is something that we look at. The threshold countywide is 7.5. We're around 6.5. for countywide, but we're going to push it up anyway because there's various components that we want to basically sell to the state and federal government that these particular storms, the one that came last week with remnants of Hurricane Norbert, the storm that we may get tomorrow, we want to basically tie all these particular events. Hopefully we will not see what we saw last week in the next couple of days, but we're ready. And we want to sell it to the fact that El Nino is a factor in a lot of this. And in past years, we've been able to tie that type of event to various storms that have affected, our county. So we're going to actually do a full court press to make sure we can do everything we can to bring monies back to this county. When we talk about public assistance and individual assistance is what our residential, partners in this community are experiencing the problems that they occurred. It's very difficult to get that, unfortunately. We're looking at in this state of California about 100 homes that have major, which is significant damage, and we are looking throughout the entire county for that. We're not there. And we're continuing to, the fact that you have proclaimed this emergency, one, you've come within that 10-day period that you have to proclaim. So we're already basically putting our docket out there saying we had a problem. Now we need to scratch those surfaces and look for those major damages and the destroyeds. And if there's foundation issues, if there's issues related to maybe if you have a basement in your house and you had intrusion from water that came into your first floor but also went into your basement, that could be considered major depending on what happened. So we want to look for all those things. So we request the residents of this community to tell us what's going on so we can do what we can to help them. If for some reason we can't get up to that amount, we have other programs that we can actually look at. And one of those programs is a small business administration. Now, most people think that's mainly for small business, but it also is for homeowners. And homeowners can also benefit from it. The only thing on there is 25 homes, which is a lot less than 100, at 40% damage based on the amount of that particular home cost.
Is that cumulative or per home?
Per home. So of those 25 homes, they have at least 40% damage. The only difference between what the federal FEMA grant gives you is the fact that it's small interest loans. And so that is the only difference between the two programs. We are also looking at other aspects that sometimes FEMA will give us, is what we call localized impact. In fact, you know, the fact that you were impacted, it was a localized impact situation. Hopefully we can also, you know, garner some help from them to assist the citizens, as well as the fact that sometimes we have multiple storms. Last year, the County of Imperial had a lot of monsoonal flow, and they were able to link all those storms together and come out with a federal declaration. So we're looking at all these type of things. We are trying our best to basically take care of not only public infrastructure, but our individual infrastructure. So we are doing anything, and you know, that we possibly can. As far as the public infrastructure issues, the federal government gives you 75% back to the city. So in other words, your responsibility is 25%. If the state gets involved, which lately they have not because of the budget crisis, they will give you 75% of your 25%, which means you only have to basically have, in this disaster, 8.25% of that total cost of that disaster. So we're pushing a lot of things. We're trying to get it in there. We've just proclaimed today. We're under our time limit. Our actual time limit for us is tomorrow. Yours is Thursday. That would be your 10-day point. We had to go one more day earlier because Riverside was the actual start of our event within the county, because they were affected on the Sunday prior to your event. So there are a lot of moving parts, a lot of things that we have to look at. But be patient with us, and we will do what we can to see what we can do to help you and your city out.
Okay, that's wonderful. That's great information. What I was really searching for was, if I am the homeowner with 5 feet of drywall damage, what is my first step? How do I move forward?
Go to your insurance company and find out what they can and can't do. Mm-hmm. That is your first thing. If you have that much water in there, definitely, if they will not cover it, then we need to know that.
Okay, so
that is going to be a big factor, is the fact that your insurance company won't cover it.
I appreciate what you're saying, but I don't have flood insurance.
Okay, okay.
So
that will help.
What is my first step then?
Then is to let the city know what that damage is.
Okay.
And what we've done, now that we've actually pulled that lever for a local proclamation, it's gone to the governor, just as
right.
you've requested, and they will send what we call a preliminary damage assessment teams out here to look at those properties.
So I don't need to take pictures, or someone's
Always
going to
take
come
pictures.
and...
Any pictures will help, because what happens is, as time goes on, it may be a week or so before they come out here. You know, things dry up, things don't look as bad as they once did. So if you can take those pictures, that'll be beneficial to us.
Okay. So they really need to call the city. Is there
please, yes.
And we will have a coordinator here in the city that will be able to answer the questions and get people started in the right direction.
I think we already have one,
Yes.
do we not?
We're collecting data.
It's part of your agenda today.
Yeah, good.
And so, and that was my question, Christy, so thanks for prompting it, in terms of the logistics.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously we're coordinating this submission with the county.
Correct.
Are homeowners able to start improvements and then track that if they're doing it privately, if their insurance doesn't cover it? And then based on us potentially, optimistically, passing the resolution to declare it an emergency and then requesting that within the 10-day period, does the governor have a 10-day period of which to review?
It's part of the same. We basically, the state has kind of taken on what the federal government has done. So they've kind of, they're looking at the same time. I'm not sure though what their time is, but they get them pretty quick. Once they do the preliminary damage assessment, that tells them, okay, we have enough to go forward and then go to the federal government. And so once that damage assessment is done, that will push it up to the federal government. So they don't, I don't think they have that 10-day period though.
So we pass a resolution, we gather information from homeowners, we're obviously gathering our own information from the city and the public damage. We have this assessment team that comes out. of which then that's all the more important
Right.
that we have information from homeowners so
Right.
that we know to send that assessment team. We're gathering up that information. And then what's that time frame if people are moving forward with their lives and trying to repair things, that that this assessment team takes it back and there's some dollar amount that is provided to assist to offset the repair costs of both the city as well as the homeowners? How does that process work? And are you helping our team go through this?
Yeah, again, the issue of the pictures are important. Document, document, document. Okay. Everything that you do. If you have a contractor that comes in, make sure, one, it's licensed. That is the most important thing. Make sure that you're not being asked to pay right up in front, because that is one of the biggest scams. You will have contractors that will ask for all the entire money up in front, and that is not, by state law, that is not required. So document everything that you get. I would get more than one bid. I would go for a 3-bid process as an individual and be able to show those 3 bids. So you have that for that inspector that's going to come from the federal government and the state. At which point, the whole thing is you want to get back to whole as far as making sure that you can live in your home, and that's, our process should not stop that. For some people, that may be an issue because of monetary capabilities. And unfortunately, we'll try to make it as speedy as possible, but that's not always possible for a lot of people. So if you have the means to do that and to go forward and to have those repairs, make sure you take those pictures, document that you went through the process of at least 3 bids, and that, the work is no different. In other words, it's not time to put a turret in your house. It's time to basically bring it back to where it was before.
And if somebody takes the option of the small business route, is that outside, that's another option while this is going on, that if they do an SBA type loan at a low interest, does that then exclude them from qualifying for any type of?
It's one or the other. If we can't get the other,
okay,
then they may do this one.
Okay.
So again, we have to get that. That's the one. If it's pretty easy. 25 homes, 40%, or not. And again, the other was 100 homes with the FEMA. So that's very, very difficult to get. And I've had situations in Los Angeles with major storms, and they couldn't get it. So it's a very difficult one. You have to have a widespread disaster.
Yeah. I would say also documented receipts to make sure that that is totally on there, because we repaired this won't cover it.
That's exactly right.
Mr. Mayor, question if I could.
Sure.
Right now it's looking at there may be a 3rd storm coming up the coast of Mexico.
Yes.
And I don't know when that may or may not hit this area, but we've got damages right now to our infrastructure. Yes. And those damages probably won't be fixed if we get another 3rd storm. So I don't know how that would impact what we're doing right now.
Yeah, and that's the tricky part about these storms. We have Odile, they'll be here tomorrow. If everything goes the way it's supposed to, as far as with the National Weather Service, we're hoping that it stays east of here. Again, it's just one of those things. So
you can't control Mother Nature.
We cannot, no. And there is a storm, as you say, behind that, and there's an additional storm building. And again, this is all because of El Nino, and we're hoping for no damage, and we can get the county recovered from this last event. But if we have subsequent events, we're going to really be pounding on these are related to that, and you need to look at that. And that's how we're going to look at it.
Mr. Mayor, if I could share.
Sure.
If I could share some of my own personal experiences, and I know some people may be getting tired of hearing this, but I've been here 47 years, and I've been flooded 3 times.
Wow.
And the first time was 18 inches on the entire property.
Wow.
The pool disappeared, and you don't unplug anything because it was above the plugs. We never, ever left the premise. We were able to maintain livability there. We got the water out. You have to pull your carpets. It's absolutely imperative to pull carpets. You need to get fans, however you can get your hands on them. Mold is the biggest consequence of this type of an activity, and it can appear 5 years later and cause you additional problems. So, so there are some things that you know you can jump at and right away and start working on. SBA, I had that experience. It was terrific. They got the money to us very rapidly, and this was 40 years ago. So maybe government is so big now that it will take quite a bit longer. It may, but maybe not. And I did not have the experience of one right after the other. So that's a very deep concern of all of us, and I think the city will be as much on top of that as we can be.
And that's important, is being prepared for the next one.
Mark, I know that we activated our Emergency Operations Center downstairs. And my understanding is the Riverside County also activated the East Valley location, which is in Indio. Tell me what that process did and what that team did to assist our area since it was so localized.
Okay. We supported our not only our fire department, but the cities that are out here in the Coachella Valley and our unincorporated areas. Myself, I went to that facility. We didn't function with all the county departments. Those were done at our west side because we were having experiences over there too. So we wanted to keep the county departments over there, and then if we needed anything down here, we'd reach back and they would reach out to their counterparts in this area. I had 3 ESCs out in the field, emergency services coordinators that work for the county that were in various locations here in La Quinta, Indian Wells, and then Thousand Palms. They were affected pretty heavily. And basically, as the day, they went from one jurisdiction to another, and to look for and to assist residents with damage. We worked with the Red Cross. You know, there was in some communities they were looking at doing an evacuation center, and so we were working with our other partners out there to try to assist them. So our staff were located here mainly as what we call an area command for our operations. So we could basically determine where everything is. I could do that in the field, but we thought we have this facility now. It's a good thing for Coachella Valley, and we put it to good use just so we can work out some of the bugs.
You talked about the federal government, you talked about the state government. Any comments from Riverside County helping?
You know, the county at this point does not have, you know, a particular program that pays for those type of things. That's something we can check for you. I don't have an answer for you at this point in time, but we need to look at all areas in that to be able to help our community in that. And so if Riverside County, you know, geez, they have all these discretionary funds that they use, so there's a good chance to use it in a good way. And we can, I'll definitely go back and do that. Being today was our first day of the proclamation. Our board meeting is this next Tuesday. Usually after these type of events, they'll also waive some of the fees possibly. So I'm hoping that I can bring some information back to you on that.
Good. Thank you, Mark.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, you know, and I know we all feel the same way. We've talked to several businesses, we've talked to several homeowners out there. I haven't talked to everybody that sustained damage, and between the staff cars and staff homes as well. I mean, we all experience this together, and obviously many of you are here for this reason, to discuss how we proceed in getting back to our normal lives. I'm sure some of you hear about sheep fences and Silver Rock, which is great, but we are doing everything we can, and I know that I've received several compliments on our public works, emergency services, law and fire, and the utility companies on doing what they could. I was one of the power outages on Washington for 4.5 hours. Couldn't between the floods and the power, you know, was limited, but we're in it together, and we want to do everything we can to ensure that we retain the quality of living that we've strove for in the city of La Quinta. Anyway, we feel for you. My heart goes out to anyone with significant damage, really.
Edie, anything more from staff?
I don't believe so. Unless you had questions of any of the staff or Public Works Department, perhaps.
Yeah, I do, Mr. Mayor.
How about the 350?
If I can, in regards to the $350,000 that we're looking to move from our reserves to our general fund, Is some of that going to be used to try and pump out as much water as we can out of our reservoirs? So if that third one does hit, that we'll be a bit more prepared than we are today?
Some of that's for that. I'd like Tim to come up and explain the details for that. There's a lot of complexities with
sure.
the storm issues and structural issues, and Tim's been working on that all week. So
Some of these reservoirs still halfway full.
Yeah, they got a lot of water in it.
Yeah.
And there's no place to pump them.
One of the main efforts right now is to get water moving again in the evacuation channel. Right now, the main drainage course for the city is about 10 to 15 feet underwater, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So what we started to do just this afternoon is create a temporary dam in the evacuation channel and started pumping water to the north. I could show you on the aerial if you'd like. But the idea is that that will clear the way for what you're talking about, Councilmember Osborne, in that now people actually could put water back into the street and it has a place to go. Right now, if that were to occur right now, if a lot of people did that, eventually we would have the water backing up in the street again. So, but that is our plan right now, to clear that. The Rondo ditch is the other main east-west drainage course. That's all pretty much been cleared down to Silver Rock, and so it's really the focus is on the evacuation channel right now.
How long do you think it'll take to clear that out?
Well, if we're trying to muster as many pumps as we can, we're going to have to close down Avenue 50 at the low water crossing in order to basically get the pumps to work across Avenue 50 from the end of the evacuation channel, which is basically the fifth hole of the dunes course, and pump it across, get it moving towards Rancho La Quinta. They've already been put on alert that we're sending water their way, and then in 2 to 3 days, I think we would have it down to the point where we start getting relief in the village area and Lower Cove and that sort of thing, because then we'll have some capacity again.
Can you share, Tim, where the water flows?
Let me.
Because that was, yes, please. I think that will help people understand.
Including me.
Right.
Yeah, it's so
I learned this
convoluted.
yesterday.
So for those who live in the Cove, the major drainage pathway is the Bear Creek Channel that I'm following with the cursor right here. It starts, we're looking to the north, starts in the south end. There's a large basin here with what we call a weir structure that allows water to go at a measured rate down the canal. It eventually makes its way into what is called the Dunes Course, but it's actually the Oleander Reservoir, which is where if you were to drive Eisenhower right now and look over the bridge, instead of seeing 2 water hazards, you'd see about 1 big one here. From there, the channel that I was describing, the evacuation channel, runs along here where my cursor is going, and that basically is providing drainage for the lower, the village area, any of the development in the Lower Cove. It also provides for like the Traditions storm drain system, ends up in this area. So with that under the amount of water that it's under right now, and with the channel being relatively flat, there's no additional capacity. So we have a bunch of storm drains, one being right in the middle of Desert Club right now that's so full of water we can't dewater the trench in order to put the street back together. So by moving this water along, by basically pumping the water that's accumulating here just south of Avenue 50 across the low water crossing and getting it heading off towards the Whitewater Channel, which is up here. By doing that, we'll be able to start dewatering the Lower Cove and Village area. The dam is necessary because, again, it's so flat here that any water, if we just started pumping into the channel, would just backflow back across the low water crossing, so we wouldn't be accomplishing much except flooding Avenue 50. So So that's the project that's underway now. The other main drainage course is actually occurs at the bottom of the cove here. There's an underground catch box culvert that pretty much runs the length of Tampico, cuts through the parking lot in the library, comes behind City Hall, goes down La Fonda, and then empties into the Rondo ditch. All of that water is basically then transferred via underground pipe into a large retention area on the Silver Rock property. That system is back up and running, and in fact, we are increasing the capacity by creating another outlet here through the, there's a dike that runs along the south side of, or north side of Tampico that had some existing pipes that we're taking advantage of. So those are the main ways that the city is drained, and so we are trying to, as I said, right now, get the capacity back in the evacuation channel so that we can be prepared if we do get another storm.
Thanks, Tim. Answer the question.
Yeah. Question, another one if I can. Frank, you know, so we're looking to transfer this $350,000, but if that other storm comes before we have a chance to meet, are we going to have an would we have to have an emergency session to move additional funds if needed?
Basically, the $350,000 includes a cushion of about $100,000 plus in anticipation of unforeseen events. Okay. So right now we're looking at, we started mobilizing non-city resources on Tuesday of last week, and we've been adding to those non-city resources in terms of private contractors and additional equipment throughout the week. And so what we're looking at here is what we need to pay for that plus what we anticipate, and then if there's more to come, which there will be, we'll be coming back to you on October 7th.
Yeah. Frank, it's costing us for outside services, what, $13,000 a day?
Yes.
So it's expensive and it keeps building up, but we've got outside contractors. Granite is doing a lot of work for us to try and resolve the problems as quickly as possible.
And that's the cost just for the cleanup, and the sinkholes are in addition to that. So we've spent quite a bit on just fixing the roads that have sunk through sinkholes as well.
And if I could make one more comment regarding the discussion that we're currently having. The city has concentrated on repairs, if you will, that most affect safety issues first. Right. And I know when Mark was up here, he said be patient. One of the most awful things in the world right now to tell somebody to do is be patient. It's very difficult to be patient, but we're already getting letters from some folks who wonder why the sand in their street hasn't been taken care of yet. Well, you can see that we're not a small city anymore. We're a very large city, and there were very large issues that dealt with safety problems. And so we will get to everybody's street, and we will get that taken care of. And we are not going to get any more storms.
That's very positive.
Scout's honor?
Scout's honor.
I have one quick question.
Yeah, Christy?
Is there any good news on this? Are we replenishing our aquifer?
I don't know if Mark Johnson said he was going to attend. He could probably answer that question better than I could.
He's here. I see him.
I understand the Salton Sea did not get any rain at all.
We'd have been happy to share it with you. Mark.
Mr. Mayor, Mark Johnson, Director of Engineering with the Coachella Valley Water District, and also a resident of the city of La Quinta. This storm, as everybody has mentioned, was unique. We have classified it as anywhere from a 500 to 1,000-year storm. The CVWD stormwater system, which is a regional stormwater system and includes some of the items that Tim has referred to, was designed to handle the standard project flood, which was a flood that occurred in Indio in 1939 and the rate of rainfall at that time was 6.5 inches of rain in 6 hours. So it was a longer duration, but quite a bit of rainfall. And that's how we design all of our regional stormwater facilities. And they performed very well during this flood. I did hike the Buhoff Trail the day after the flood, and the water that comes down out of the mountains hits the dike up there, and it was this high.
Really?
So it goes into that big basin, and it stores it and regulates the flow out down to the evacuation channel. CPWD did suffer about $2.5 million worth of damage throughout our entire system, and most of that occurred in Indian Wells, actually, not in La Quinta. We're very fortunate that the Coachella Canal work that we just completed suffered just a small amount of damage and easily repaired. So we're very fortunate there, because I have video of that canal just basically submerged during that storm. As far as replenishing the aquifer, it all helps, but we need, you know, a nice steady rain for several months. Not only here, but in Northern California, and also in the Colorado region. So we're very fortunate that we have 3 sources of supply here: the Colorado River, our underground aquifer, and the State Water Project. And I want to thank Tim and his staff. We've worked together the last few days to handle several issues. And unfortunately, the La Quinta evacuation channel that takes all the water from the Bear Creek system out to the Whitewater Channel is very, very flat. And to get it moving sometimes is difficult. We're going to follow up with, we have a couple of golf courses that are in that channel, and I think there's some things we can do here shortly to improve that flow through the city. The other thing I wanted to mention, we issued a press release today because of potential event coming up. We almost had our water reclamation plant number 4, which is in Thermal, that receives most of the wastewater from the city of La Quinta. That evening, we almost had a major failure there because there was some natural infiltration into the sewers, but there was definitely people opening up manhole covers, sewer manhole covers, and pumping stormwater into our sewers. That plant was designed as a 10 MGD, 10 million gallon per day plant. And we recorded at the peak that evening 20 million gallons per day, almost double the plant capacity. Fortunately, we have some basins there that were able to handle the flow. But in our press release today, we re-emphasized to the public and all the businesses throughout our system, please do not pump or open up sewer manholes, because our wastewater plants are not designed to handle those flows. The stormwater is supposed to go to a different place. It upsets the treatment process, and we just don't have the hydraulic capacity to handle it. So we were very fortunate there as well. So just a reminder about the wastewater system. Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay. Unless there's anything else, we do have some requests to speak. So again, when I call your name, if you'll come up to the podium and give us your name and address for the record, and if you can keep it to 3 minutes, we'd appreciate it. First one is Robin Hendricks. Robin? Oh, there she is. Okay.
Hi, thank you. My name's Robin Hendricks. I actually live at 79080 Cantera in La Quinta. I'm in North La Quinta, so my personal home wasn't affected, but I'm also a landlord here up in the Eisenhower area of the Cove. I have a 8-unit apartment building, All 8 units were destroyed. Low-income tenants, obviously no place to go. I've been dealing with trying to keep all of them housed through the damage. I was interested when you were asking, when do you fix it? Well, when you have 8 people with no home, you fix it that day. I was fortunate enough to have my handyman who helps me, who said he drove in during the storm, and he said, I'll park my truck and walk in if I have to, which is what he had to do, and start ripping out carpet. I was devastated from behind. I sit right on Eisenhower next to La Quinta Palms Real Estate, and the water came down from Carranza, each street by street. The houses, the 3 houses behind me were 3 feet underwater. When that water let out, it took out my property, as well as the side. I've had a side issue without the rain. The people next to me were built a foot higher than me with no retention, water retention for their property, and I've been fighting them for 12 years since I've owned the property and have gotten very little done about it. If they leave their hose on, it takes out 2 of my units. And so I guess I'm here asking, for one, I need help for all of the units that were taken out to try to replenish my operating capital, because I now have none. And I'm trying to get the city, I haven't been making any progress really, to help me resolve the issue with the neighbors next door who, they didn't get flooded because I am their storm drain. Everything from their property goes to mine. They had no damage. And now they've now allowed the tenants to put in an above ground pool. If that breaks, it takes out 2 of my units. So, you know, I'm trying to be a good landlord, provide safe places for my tenants to live, decent places for them to live. I've cleaned up the neighborhood since I've been the landlord there. I no longer have the issues that were there with the prior landlord. My tenants are all single parents, young couples with small children, you know, just with a safe place to live where their kids can walk to school and feel comfortable having them at home. And, you know, I want to thank you guys all for all that you're doing. Today's been very interesting listening. It's nice to see you, Terry. I don't know if you remember me.
Yes, I do.
It's been many, many years. I'm still here. I'm still here. barely standing. My husband's also on the docket. He's probably going to be able to speak much better than myself to get our point across. I'm sure I'm not the only one in the room that's saying, where can we get help? How can we get help to rebuild? I am rebuilding. You know, I'm borrowing and doing whatever I can.
I think the SBA is going to be the best.
Okay, because I mean, I have to get these people back in there. I don't have them all back in. The ones up front, ironically, didn't get as damaged, so they're living through the construction, but the ones in the back, they're not back yet, but I'm working as quick as I can and trying to get funds, you know, my own private funds wherever I can, but it's burying me, and I want to still operate. I don't want to lose the building because I can't operate. So that's where I'm at. And I filled out the paperwork. I filled 1 for each unit, so that's 8 towards the 100. I hope that helps. So that's all I could do. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Robin. Michael Hendricks.
Came in order. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Hendricks. I live at 79080 Cantera Drive. As my wife just spoke, we are landlords and we have 8 units, and we have sustained damage from Velasco to Eisenhower coming through the back properties. Eisenhower drained well. It stayed out of our building, but we did sustain damage from Herrera to Velasco, Velasco to Eisenhower. We are working diligently to get our community and our town back on its feet as fast as we possibly can, and we really appreciate all the things that you've done to help us. As my wife spoke, we have a tenant, an issue with our neighbor to our south, who was built in '92, is always running onto our property. This is a prime time to address that, seeing how everybody is aware of water flow, as the pictures showed so well. Our difficulty is getting the city involved in resolving this matter with our tenants as quickly as we possibly can and our neighbors as quickly as we possibly can to get these people back into their homes, their children back into schools, and all of that. We have removed carpets, we're replacing tiles, we have removed drywall, we have dried everything out, removed wet insulation and all that. Burtech came out on Saturday and helped remove a lot of the debris. I don't think that was mentioned. We greatly appreciate those efforts that you as city council members are making for us. We're longtime residents. We're not going anywhere. When we speak of our hometown, La Quinta is it. We're not victims or survivors, and we need your help to stay surviving.
Thank you
so
Thank
much.
you, Michael.
Thank you for the update.
Peter Murphy.
Thank you. I'm Peter Murphy, 78154 San Timoteo Street in the La Quinta Golf Estates. I'm also the president of the Homeowners Association. I represent 187 single-family homes there. And all the water comes down Eisenhower, comes right into our gate guardhouse.
We saw it.
Yeah, I know, and I've got pictures to prove it. I know we've got a lot of problems. Yeah. We just wanted to go on record because we understood the city might be in line for some funding to help on drainage. And we like to have our Coachella guardhouse number one on that list because all the water honestly comes down there. 99% of the guardhouse water, our girl last Monday was in 18 inches of water after she's already 12 inches above the street. So almost 3 feet. And she stood there and did her shift, and we're so proud of her. But we just want to go on record that 99% of that water that comes in our guardhouse is off that street. Now, Tim and I have talked about it, and we went through all the design. We built that guardhouse 10 years ago under the city specs and all that. They were out there examining it daily, and we put the proper drainage in that we were instructed to put in. And yet, we get 99% of the water off Eisenhower. So we just want to be considered for any future. We want to be number one on the list for the new drainage.
We talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a good hard look at what we can do.
Hopefully. And I've lived there 18 years. I plan to live there another 18 years. So we love the gem of the desert. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Terry Bennett.
My name is Terry Bennett, and I've lived in the Cove since '78. And I've been through more than one flood. I'm in Middle Cove. The address is 52660 Avenida Carranza. And I've rebuilt my property to up to date with drainage as much as I could, which was French drains. But the older homes are all lower. So all the homes in La Quinta that were not on a berm, which all the newer homes have to be built up, I'm sure those are the ones that got all the damage. Now, my question to the city council is, when we put curbs and sewers in, why didn't, for the center of the Cove, why didn't they do sufficient amount of drainage? Because they didn't do good enough drainage in the center Cove. Because these are the people that are getting all the damage. And it doesn't matter what you can do, your house is still lower. You're going to get, I mean, granted, traditions helped a great deal from the mountains, but when you get floods like what we had, it doesn't help. I mean, I've rebuilt my garage. This will be the second time of gutting it and redoing it. And I don't know, at this point, I've got sandbags all the way across my garage, hoping that that's going to stop it. But I don't think it is, because my whole backyard was flooded to the point of 1 foot in front of my back door. So I'm just wanting to address City Council, hoping that they will consider in the future to think about redoing some storm drains. I know we don't get a lot of rain, but when we get rain, it's obscene.
I like the word.
It's not, you know, it's not just rain, it's torrential downpour. And I don't think anything that I could do, I mean, I no longer have a cement driveway, have one of those interlocking bricks thinking that the water will soak in. You know, I have thought it through, but I don't think, unless I lift my house up on stilts, put dirt under it, it's still going to get flooded.
Be a little difficult.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So I just would hope that sometime in the future that, I mean, I think it should have been done when they put the sewers, when everybody had the option to do sewers. But now it's down the road, and we're seeing more rain every year, more torrential rain. And I just think some of the money that goes into La Quinta should go to better drainage systems and better storm drains in the cove itself, because we get the majority of it. Anyhow, thank you very much. And by the way, thank you to Burtech and all of you. I mean, I had such an enormous pile in the front of on Saturday because my sons came from Orange County to help me clean the garage out. But thank you for the pickup. And I do appreciate the fact that you guys thought of us in the cove.
Thank you.
Well, you know, this last storm is a wake-up call for us.
It makes people who weren't neurotic totally neurotic. I'm sitting there saying, okay, you know, how good is the orange bags going to look across my property, and how long do I keep them there?
I think what we've done is given a lot of work to Tim.
Yes, I think so.
Public Works to see what we can do to take care of it.
Yes, okay, so I hope that goes on the agenda sometime in the future.
Good.
Thank
you very much.
Mr. Mayor, maybe we can announce the October 7th
meeting
request at 4:30 that we asked for Tim to have storm drain information, so those that would want to attend.
The information go out, Susan, on the meeting?
Well, no, because we just said it earlier today, so maybe Tim can address it.
Yes, it'll go on the website, it'll be posted.
Yeah, we want to make sure that notice goes out
Yes, it
to
will.
the residents of our meeting.
For what we're talking about is that before our closed session, we had speakers come in, and on October 7th, it's whatever, a couple of weeks from today, at 4:30 in the afternoon, we will be having a study session on drainage here in the city and laying out some options or sort of items for consideration in terms of what we as staff have come up with over the years of addressing this situation. So for those of you who will be around on October 7th at 4:30, we'll be meeting here in the council chambers. The meeting will start probably at 3 o'clock with a closed session. Regular session will start at 4, and then we'll make this a time certain 4:30 discussion.
And part of that discussion and the reason for it is to ascertain what kind of financial figures we're looking at going into the future. As you all know, the state took away our RDA, which if we had that redevelopment agency in place now, we could be on a lot of these issues. Now, the state did that in order to enhance their budget, and they're now bragging about having a balanced budget, and they're not taking credit for many communities, counties, and cities in the state of California not having balanced budgets because they took our money. Excuse me for adding that.
And bankruptcy. Yeah. Okay, that was it. We want two resolutions. One for the funding and the other for requesting emergency.
The one action would be to approve the three resolutions. So if you could take that up first.
Okay.
I'll make.
Move approval of the 3 resolutions: local emergency, governor to proclaim the state emergency, and proclamation of local emergency by the California Office of Emergency Services.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Do we need a motion to transfer the, I'll make a motion to transfer the $370,000.
We have the second one as the permit.
As stated, a recommended action to deal with the temporary waiver of building permit fees. So if you could make a motion and consider that item.
All right, then I'll make a motion to remove the fees regarding, the building permit fees regarding damage due to the flood.
Second.
Item number 2. Second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And the last one would be moving approval of the move of $350,000 from reserves for this specific fund.
To the flood of 14 recovery fund.
Second.
Moved and second. Please vote. Motion again passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And that we also Somebody, who was
Yeah.
it that pulled number 10?
Me.
Okay, Terry?
And just in case you took time to look at the agenda and look at some of the agenda items, item number 10, which was on the consent calendar, the reason that I've asked it to be removed was so that the city manager could explain to all of you just what ridiculous actions and motions we've had to go through because of the city's, or of the county's desire, I'm sorry, the state's desire to do away with redevelopment agencies. This one will make you really proud of the state of California.
Well, basically, when the state elected to eliminate redevelopment, it set up a means of which it would liquidate the assets of 400 redevelopment agencies here in the state of California. What that meant for the city of La Quinta was, one, the city had loaned since 1988 roughly $41.3 million to the redevelopment agency to do various public improvements. The state, as part of the legislation, even though that loan was repaid before redevelopment was eliminated, the legislation was designed to claw back those monies. And so in October of last year, we lost litigation. And as such, the city had to pay out of its general fund reserves $41.3 million to the schools, the county, the water district, and other taxing agencies here. So our liquid reserves went down from $66 million to roughly $25 million. The second part is that the legislation was designed to liquidate real property assets that the redevelopment agency had accrued over the years. One asset was the village parking lot. Another asset was about 200 plus acres at the Silver Rock Resort. We started on a quest in 2012 when this all became effect to go through a series of things where we were audited 5 times by the state. We had the litigation over the general fund reserves and the payment of $41.3 million, and then we went through a process where we had to prepare a long-range property disposition plan or management plan, of which this is the subject. That plan was finally approved by the Department of Finance in August of this year, and what it provided is that the city could take ownership of these properties at Silver Rock. We have a unique aspect, is that when these properties were built or purchased in 2002, the redevelopment agency used tax-exempt bond proceeds to acquire these properties. What that means is that the Internal Revenue Service has requirements that if these properties are to be sold, they cannot be sold for more than $1 each. We presented this to the state. The state went through, I think we submitted the long-range property management plan to the state of California in December of 2013, and we went through a series of discussions and rewrites and revisions and the rest, and got the final decision in August. What this means is that we now need to enter into agreements with 10 taxing agencies, being those that collect property taxes within the former boundaries of the former redevelopment agency, to distribute roughly $16 of revenue that we would get from the sale of these properties to them. To the city of La Quinta, that means that given our tax rate of 7 cents on every dollar, we'll get roughly $1.12. This county of Riverside will get about $4. The school districts will get about $4. And so what these agreements are is gives us an opportunity to move forward and engage each one of these taxing entities to have them have their boards of directors approve these things, so then we can pay out the $16 to them.
So we will spend about $50,000 in order to have this process take place in the next couple of weeks.
That's correct.
Just thought I thought you all might like to have that information because it just keeps me awake at night. So would you like to?
Terry? Okay.
You mean you want me to make a motion to approve
Yes,
this?
yes.
So move.
Second.
A move to second, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to our study session. The first one, we have two this evening. The first one is the update on bighorn sheep protection fence along the base of the Coral Mountain required by state and federal agency. Staff report, please, Edie.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to have Steve Howlett. All right.
Steve?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. This is an update for the bighorn sheep protection fence in La Quinta. In March 2014, the city and the Coachella Valley Conservation Commission received a joint letter from the U.S. and California Fish and Wildlife Agencies putting the CVCC and the city on notice that the peninsular bighorn sheep are accessing La Quinta properties. This notice requires a response within 6 months. Attached for your review is the response that was submitted by the CVCC in August. The notice also requires that a barrier fence be constructed at these properties within 2 years of receiving the notice. The fence proposal provided by the CVCC is 8.3 miles long and 8 feet high, and you have a display right now showing you the location of this fence. The cost estimate is $2.4 to $3.3 million. The wildlife agencies have indicated to the CVCC that they will consider viable alternatives. Currently, Silver Rock is the only property that is conditioned to install a fence if mandated by these agencies. The construction and funding for all of these, for the fence at all these properties is yet to be determined. That concludes this update. Staff is available for any questions, as well as Katie Barrows from CVCC.
Good. Thanks, Steve. Questions to staff?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Lee?
So, as you mentioned, there are a number of groups that are included in this area for this fence, from the quarry to traditions.
Correct.
And including PGA West. And so, but the city of La Quinta only has control of Silver Rock.
Correct.
And we can only deal ourselves with Silver Rock. We cannot in any shape or fashion mandate a fence on either the quarry, PGA West, or traditions. Is that correct?
That's how I understand it.
Legally
yes.
speaking, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Terry, Atlanta?
When tradition came into our community and went through the process of getting its permits to build, they at that time, and I cannot remember, and I apologize for that, whether it was 250,000 or 450,000, but they at that time they paid that to the environmental group, if you will, in order to not build the fence. So there is no, I don't see how they can even come back on tradition for any kind of funding at all. And I understand that there is also some kind of study that is due out soon, or an update on a study that was made, or it has you have some information on that. And I don't think that we should take any action until we get updated numbers. And someone's going to have to prove to me, and I've been here a long time, and I would say we've got 2 to 3 times as many bighorn sheep now than we had when I got here. And they kind of like coming down and eating some grass, and it seems to do them good. And they kind of go home, and then they get active, and then we have little babies, and so it's kind of, they're evolving.
The lifestyle.
Yeah, they're evolving and becoming part of a new generation. They know how to eat grass and drink water, and I understand they like petunias. So I don't know why we in some places in the United States, we want to stop evolution, and if that had happened, we'd be running around here with little little suits on made out of bear fur or something. We have to evolve, and they are evolving, and they're going to get. Just give me a break. That's all. And in fact, I'm taking one. So. Yeah.
I'm the City of La Quinta's representative on the Conservation Commission with CVAG, and at last week's meeting we did have a representative from Fish and Wildlife that came to address us about the fence. And I know that CVCC is in, I know Katie, our representative, is also in the room if she to give an update on, we were required to give a 6-month status. So that's why this is on the agenda, to talk about the collaborative efforts between the Conservation Commission and the City of La Quinta and what we've been trying to do to address this request. And it's really not a request, it's a mandate. But when the gentleman from Fish and Wildlife presented last week, he presented on information that was from 2010 approximately. There had been no studies, no surveys. He could not give an accurate account of how many bighorn sheep were in the area. He could not address the fact that if we put a wall up today, a fence, that where is the alternative water source and food sources for these animals, which is why they are on the golf course. He did not know that Silver Rock contained no oleander whatsoever, which was one of the claims in terms of a poisonous. They've never asked any of the other communities that have been named to remove any oleander, which apparently, again, is poisonous. In fact, he talked about the amount of deaths in their capture process for their monitoring, and it's like 1 per 100 deaths of bighorn when they're doing their capture and their monitoring. But they haven't done any capture and monitoring of our area in several years. And so it was evident that this is an agency that's strong-arming local government without the proper data to support what is going on behind our golf course that is going to be cruelty to animals if we take any action like this. They've become part of the community. We appreciate the urban development component. We don't want them running down Jefferson Street by any means, but it was a consensus of the CVCC that we were not prepared to move forward in any way, let alone how cost prohibitive it would be to fund a fence, not even taking into consideration the fact we have no control over a large amount of that land. I'm just completely opposed to what it's doing and the statement it's making, because they're strong-arming us without any data to support it. So free the sheep. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Don?
Yes,
Christie. So we've been mandated to do this, and the thing that, to build this 8.3 miles of 8-high-foot fence. And I guess what bothers me probably more than anything else is they gave us a cost. There was a cost in our report of what it was going to cost to build a fence, which I think was way underfunded. But there is no consideration given to the fact that we would have to purchase those properties to build the fence around with PGA West and with the quarry. I'm certain they're not just going to dedicate the land to us to put up an ugly fence that they don't want in the first place.
Maybe it'll sell to us for $1.18.
So then that leaves me with, in my thinking, with the only option would be eminent domain. And I don't think that any one of us want to do that. No. So I've been out on Silver Rock when the sheep are there. They really like the pods from one of the mesquites? Tree, the mesquites, yes. And I was told by Randy Duncan, the golf pro there, that they also get water from the pods, and so they're happy. They don't bother the golfers. They are out of the way, and it's the most ludicrous idea I've heard of in ages. And if we were to put a fence where Silver Rock is, what do you think the boys and girls are going to do?
Walk around.
They're going to walk around the fence. I mean,
well, and,
logic and reason.
Right. We've got a very engaged citizen. Actually, he's a Rancho Mirage resident who provided a few of us CVCC members with a wealth of information. His name is Richard Wood, and where are you? Is he out here someplace? And he's done some research on at least the Silver Rock component. We do have a count of about 35 there. 5 rams, 10 lambs born this year, 8 last year. So exactly, we are reproducing clearly. And based on his research in terms of seeking data, the next closest water source, if a fence was to go up, was up in the Bear Creek area, 6 miles away. And probably, with the exception of maybe last Monday, not having adequate water to sustain these animals on a long-term basis. It's just, so the question is, and Katie, forgive me if I'm going to call you on this one, what happens if we don't do it? We just say no.
Put you on
You
the
knew
spot,
that
Katie.
one was coming. And it's not Katie's call. You can share your role, but we talked about this a little.
Thank you, members of the council. Katie Barrows, Director of Environmental Resources for CVAG and the Coachella Valley Conservation Commission. Do I need my address? 73710 Fred Waring Drive, Palm Desert. Well, I guess as the council has accurately stated, the condition that provides for the fence is a condition of the multiple species plan, and in fact one that when we all signed on to it, we agreed to. So from the perspective of a mandate, yes, it is a requirement, and it was something that, you know, perhaps there wasn't an expectation of the kind of challenge that we have with the sheep coming onto the course, but it was a condition we all agreed to. I guess in terms of that question of what would happen, I'm not sure I have an answer for you. You know, I think our, I guess the positive aspect of this is that we have a good working relationship with the wildlife agencies. We do have a requirement, as you have heard, to provide that 6-month update, which we did, and the requirement is that the fence be installed within 2 years. We certainly recognize that there are some issues that have to be resolved in order for that to happen. One of those is funding, one of those is land ownership and whether we can actually get permission. We have an environmental analysis process that will have to take place, and that's going to take some time and have to be funded. And I think Councilwoman Franklin, you mentioned in terms of the estimate of cost. I know Steve did some estimates that were well above our estimates, and our estimates were conservative based on the costs for the city of Rancho Mirage with an inflation factor. I think that's probably only essentially the materials and the installation of the fence itself, and not the associated activities that need to go along with that. So I think we see it as a requirement. I think we're concerned about wanting to make sure that the best thing is done for the bighorn sheep. And there is a challenge and a problem with them being out on 52 and running around on the streets and not only endangering themselves, but endangering anyone who might, you know, if a vehicle accident with a sheep is not going to be good for any of those parties. So we're trying to look at what solutions there are. And in terms of alternatives, we've talked a little bit about that at the CVCC meeting. At the present time, we don't have a definitive alternative. I mean, a fence we know will work, at least in terms of keeping the sheep from going onto the golf course and getting out onto the streets. And that's what the concern is from the Wildlife Agency's perspective. Whether that's the best solution, we're looking at whether there are some potential alternatives, and we want to identify those and provide that information and work with the wildlife agencies to see if there are some options, but we don't have at this time a viable alternative that we can say we know this will work.
They'd indicated they were going to start an updated survey this fall.
Right.
The Fish and Wildlife. And, you know, again, I wasn't prepared to accept any of their lack of information until such study was done. And they did not also offer solutions when we asked them if we were to have this, what other things can you offer up? Do you transport these sheep to an area like in San Jacinto that has a lower count that would keep them out of that realm? And they were completely unresponsive to having any of that. So
I think as you've reflected, Councilmember Evans, we do have some positive aspects with regard to some funding we've received. We, the CVCC, received a grant from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to put collars on the sheep and to provide the helicopter time that's necessary to do that. And that will happen this fall. We also recently received some funding from the Bureau of Reclamation, which of course manages and maintains the Coachella Canal. And that funding is to do some disease analysis to basically get samples from the sheep and determine what their disease status and their health is, and also to take a look at their genetic profiles so that we can understand what's happening in terms of movement. You know, the helicopter, excuse me, the population surveys that had been done by the Department of Fish and Wildlife for quite a number of years stopped, as was explained by our representative at the meeting, because there was a helicopter accident and several individuals were killed, and they haven't been able to, until recently, kind of get back to that. But nevertheless, I think you have accurately stated that more data is needed almost in any case. We always need more information. We're proceeding with at least a preliminary outline of the fence. That is a proposed route. As I mentioned, there are things we would still have to determine in terms of if that's the best route, how do we do in terms of the property ownership? Obviously, that's going to have to be figured out. We have to do environmental analysis. So, you know, because it is something that we agreed to, we'll proceed in that direction, but we also are going to identify and talk to the agencies about whether there are alternatives. Water, the issue of providing water is something we've already discussed with them. We're looking at, you know, in fact, they've been bringing back to us, are there potential funding sources that might support that? The challenge is probably, and we don't know this, but water is not the only issue. Obviously, they're after the food, they're after the grass, they're after forage, and it may not be, if we just put water up there, that may not be an alternative in terms of the whole situation. So, you know, I think we have certainly, I guess, the consensus that also came out of the CVCC meeting is everyone cares about the bighorn sheep. We want to maintain their populations, and we're just looking at what's the most appropriate way to do that. So.
Question if I can, Mr. Mayor. Katie, is relocation on the table for these as an alternative?
We've had some preliminary conversations. That was something that was suggested by perhaps a member of the, can't remember where it came up, but it did come up, and we've had some preliminary conversations about that. I don't know that we know for sure if that is workable. One of the challenges is, you know, when the nature's doing all sorts of funny things with us in terms of drought, floods. The challenge is if you take sheep that are used to a fairly rich environment and take them back up to the mountains and the habitat isn't available to support them, they're not going to do very well, perhaps. So moving them into an area where there's already sheep and the animals are probably at the capacity of the environment to support them may not work. So we'll explore that possibility and, you know, certainly consider whether it could work, but that's one of the initial considerations is you move them to a location, the habitat is perhaps, there's probably as many sheep out there as the environment can support at the present time, so.
So, I mean, as what we've seen out there, they look pretty healthy, and obviously the reproduction and everything. If we were to have to put this fence, and then they did not have the water or the food that they needed, and so their herd started to decline and lose some of theirs, and could you guarantee that we would not be held liable for any of that damage to that herd because of the fence that we put in?
That was a standstill.
That was definitely a standstill question. But I'm concerned. I don't want another government agency to then blame us because another government agency made us put in a fence.
That's a fair question. Is it okay if I don't answer that right now? Well, I think these are all things that we will have as part of an environmental analysis, environmental impact report, or whatever appropriate environmental analysis. We need to take a look at that. What's the impact of the fence itself in terms of the things that you've described? I don't know the answer to what we might expect to happen. And we can look back at the Rancho Mirage experience. That was a situation where a similar problem there right next to Highway 111 and sheep getting hit by cars and so on. But I don't have a definitive answer. It will be something we'll have to take a look at.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, did I understand that there also will be taken into consideration some input from the public on the issue, and that it could weigh heavily into leaving them alone, and you might consider that?
Well,
and
I
not
think,
you personally.
I think certainly one of our goals in the coming months for the fall, now that would be to have some outreach to the residents of PGA West. We have met with the staff there and the golf course superintendent have toured and so on, but given the timing, we wanted to try to do that now. I've had a few folks call our office expressing some concerns, and certainly we want to get people's input and engage with them. You know, I will mention, at least in the Rancho Mirage area, one of the ways that they actually funded that fence construction was with contributions from homeowners associations at Thunderbird and elsewhere. We've talked about crowdsourcing. I mean, we're looking at all sorts of ideas, but certainly, absolutely, we want to reach out to the immediate residents, but at the same time also, the CVCC is talking about having a further discussion. We had a our meetings normally last 1 hour, and it went more than an hour, and we would like to probably plan for that sometime either this fall or early next year, and certainly that would be an opportunity for public input. Yes, we absolutely want to hear from folks.
We may have some comments tonight, too. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I've got some people that request to speak. Just a comment. I live on the 14th green at the Palmer course, right up in the mountains, and we get the bighorn sheep in our backyard. And that until about 7, 8 years ago, we never saw a bighorn sheep. And that we saw all kinds of animals, but not bighorn sheep coming down off of the mountain. And that then we saw them begin to come in, just a few here and there. They really didn't look healthy. And that we wondered what their problem was, and I think they were having a problem some years ago being able to be healthy. I guess there were certain diseases or something what was happening to them. But starting 5, 6 years ago, we started seeing the bighorn come in. Now I see them, but maybe every other month they'll come in. Matter of fact, yesterday we had 14 in our backyard. Wow. And they are healthy looking. They're bouncing around. They go up that mountain like you won't believe, and that. But we have seen this over the years, the present, and that, and they seem to be thriving. I don't know, and I know the reasons why they're concerned, because on the golf courses they put insecticides and they put fertilizers, and the animals feed on the grass. Interesting is they don't get on the green itself, the putting green. They go around it. They don't, and you can get up as close as 5 feet to them before they'll move away. So they don't bother us, and we don't bother them when we're out on the golf course. And of course, we enjoy seeing them because they come down into our backyard, and once in a while they're butting heads and things like that. And it's a beautiful scene that we are able to enjoy. And that I would hate to see a fence put up there to stop them from coming into the area. I think there could be ramifications on keeping them from their water supply and keeping them from their food supply and that. And I think we're all interested in protecting the species, but there's a point in which maybe we're overprotecting and we're creating a hazard rather than something to increase the species and that. So I am concerned, and I think our council is, and I think they've expressed their views, and that I think they're a beautiful animal, and really they look much healthier than what they did years ago, and that so something must be doing them well, so that they are able to generate their species in that. But it was interesting, periodically, we've seen as many as 19 in our the backyard area of the green and that, and so they seem to do well in that out there anyways. But I know that our contractual agreement with when we built Silver Rock said this. I would question whether it's necessary to build a fence where the canal is, because the canal comes right down the mountain and the canal is right there, and it's obvious they can't get across the canal, so why put a fence up there on the canal when it's not necessary? There is points around the golf course that you would say yes, that they would come through and onto the golf course, but not where the canal protects it. I think that's just a waste of money. But thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Okay. We do have some requests to speak, so again, if you'd come up to the podium when I call your name, and then if you could keep it to 3 minutes, we'd appreciate it. Daniel Luttrell, is it?
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Luttrell, 54481 Tanglewood, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak. I've learned a lot in this meeting, as well as attending the Coachella Valley Conservation meeting last week, which discussed the bighorn sheep, and I applaud Ms. Evans for asking the very, very difficult questions on the need, the efficacy for this $3 million fence. And Mr. Mayor, I echo all of your thoughts, experiences with these sheep, because I too am a resident of PGA West, living literally a block from the 14th green. I hike and jog along the base of those mountains no less than 10 times per year, and have enjoyed just the magnificence and the innocuous presence of these animals. So I am opposed to the fence, and I just urge the government and the agencies to continue to ask the difficult questions for the need of such an expensive project. And additionally, in the absence of any valid data, with only 3 documented deaths in the last 7 years. I'm an animal rights activist. 3 deaths is, to me, not tolerable, but this is the cycle of life in the wild. So I urge you to continue to ask the difficult questions. And now my concern is with the Fish and Wildlife presenting a monitoring program. Isn't that tantamount to asking the wolf, who's in charge of the hen house, for a report?
Of course it is.
So please continue.
Absolutely.
And I applaud, because what I'm hearing is responsible government in action to challenge the need for this fence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. Richard Wood?
We think maybe he left.
Richard? Hal? Shay? Yeah.
That was the gentleman who spoke earlier, I'll say.
Yeah.
He spoke earlier.
Oh, okay. Earlier? All right. No, that's Silver Rock. That's all the request I have to speak. Anyone wishing to say anything? Seeing none?
Wait a minute, we got one.
Oh, yeah, please, come on. Come back up.
Michael Hendricks. I spoke earlier. The only question that I didn't hear was the care and feeding or the maintenance of said fence. That was never brought up. After it's installed, who's going to be required to care for that? Who's going to be required to maintain it after a flood or a storm?
The city.
Exactly.
You know who is the deep
Yeah, all the
pockets
taxpayers sitting in this room.
Fish and Wildlife isn't going to help. There's no budget for that.
You knew the answer to that.
That's for sure. Anything else for the council or staff and that? So this is a study session, so there's no need for a motion. All right. Can we take about a 5-minute break so I can let the blood run out of my posterior? The city council meeting, and we'll move on to our second study session, and that's an overview of Silver Rock Resort Development Program. Staff report, Chris?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Last year, you took action to enter into negotiations with Merriweather and the Robert Greene Company. From that point forward, we've been working with them to create the new development program for Silver Rock. So today's purpose and focus is for the development team to provide their vision and overview of the site plan and the program. In a moment here, I'll turn it over to the city manager, who will provide project history and background from the beginning. In addition, we have Les Johnson and John McMillan here, who are available, and myself available to answer any questions that should arise throughout the conversation. It's very much been a collective effort throughout this time. But again, today's focus is to run through the development program. Over the next few meetings, we're going to be taking up the project components on a individualized basis. So for the next study session, we'll be taking a more focused look at the business terms and parameters of the agreement. We have on October 14th, the Planning Commission needs to review potentially the agreement with items being brought forth back to the City Council in November for your consideration. So with that said, I would like to turn it over to the City Manager.
Mayor and council members, as well as members of the audience, this has been an effort that the city has had underway since roughly 1999. The rationale was to use the former city's former redevelopment agency to basically make strategic investments in economic development activities that would then generate money for the general fund. In doing so, we started looking at what funding sources and resources are available to the city that cannot easily be taken by the state of California. Up to 1990, the state had gone, or 1999 and 2000, the state had taken prior redevelopment agency funds. This agency paid out $23 million plus over the years. They had reallocated property tax revenue through a series of flips and triple flips. They basically were talking about garnering sales tax revenue in order to balance the state budget. So we looked at opportunities to grow our transient occupancy tax revenue, and when we started talking to hoteliers, they basically said, well, you really can't get a hotel in the desert unless you have a golf course associated with it, much like it's hard to get hotels at the coast without being on the beach. So we set about to look at acquiring property to do a golf course and a resort, and was fortunate enough to be in the right place in the right time when in 2002 we purchased 525 acres from KSL Recreation. The city went on a fast-track program to then do planning efforts to develop a master plan that was adopted in 2003. We retained golf course architects in 2004 and opened the Silver Rock Golf Course in March of 2005. At that time, we embarked on an effort to secure a hotel developer, and in 2006, we entered into a disposition and development agreement with Lowell Enterprises to put hotels on the Silver Rock development, and they were 60% complete with construction drawings to come forth with a 200-room boutique hotel when in 2008, Lehman Brothers went out of business, the financial markets froze, and financing dried up for any type of development, let alone this type of development. So we went on hold until roughly 2012 when we moved forward to have a study session with the City Council to see where the council sat and the community sat in terms of the vision for Silver Rock and the specific plan. That was confirmed, and we started a process that then looked at 3 development entities who came forward with proposals to develop the property. And in April 2013, Meriwether Green was selected because of their financial backing, because of the fact that they could bring hotel operators to the table, and because of their vision for Silver Rock. People may ask, well, why is it that we've waited from April of 2013 to now September of 14 to start unveiling the details of this program? Well, as we stated earlier, we went through a liquidation process involving our former redevelopment agency and had to go through the property management plan activities that involved half of the Silver Rock properties. The Arnold Palmer Golf Course was not subject to that review. Roughly 80 acres that the city purchased from the redevelopment agency in the final days of the agency's existence was ruled by the Department of Finance as being exempt because they were able to gain access to those assets by taking $41 million from the city general fund. And so that left us with about half of the acres that was subject to state review. And as stated earlier, we managed to get through that process and get final approval in the latter part of August. So now we're at the point where we can actually talk about dealing with a piece of property and a whole piece of property that is under control of and owned by, because we signed the deeds and I think they all recorded, to transfer all of that land to the city of La Quinta. And so we're here today to start this process of community dialogue about what's being proposed, what the city investment would be into the development, because nothing's free, and before the city was going to invest over $100 million to build golf courses, a clubhouse, infrastructure, and the rest in order to be able to sell finished pads to a hotel developer. But today in our post-redevelopment world, we're left with $7 million to invest in a development that in total would be valued at roughly $420 million. So the difference that we're looking at today is we're saying, hey, we have land here that we can offer up. Hey, we have $7 million that we can offer up. But gee whiz, it's going to take roughly $45 to $50 million to energize the site in order to accommodate private development. And we need to turn to the private marketplace to say, you need to put that money on the table because we no longer have the capacity to do it. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Chris and the team. And it should be mentioned, because Chris didn't, Mr. McMillan is the economist that's been working with us and the real estate advisor. Les has been working with us on the planning and environmental issues and all things relating to how development happens. And Chris has been helping coordinate all of our efforts as we go through this process that has involved a lot of discussions, a lot of city attorney time, and discussions with the council.
So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to the development team.
Thank you, Mr. Spevacek and City Attorney, Mayor Adolph, and Council and staff. John Gamlin, partner in Silver Rock Development Company, representing the joint venture here today. With me, I have my partners, Robert Green, who you'll be hearing from shortly. Robert is the hotel component of our project, as well as Meriwether partners Jerry Engel and Graham Culper here in the audience. We're here tonight to talk at a high level about the vision for the plan. We realize that there are many meetings that will be coming up over the next couple months to discuss the project, and a lot of opportunity for input and comment. And so we'll try to keep our remarks brief and share with you in a presentation the vision that we have for this property. So what we'll do, if I could walk you through it briefly, we're going to present the overall master plan first. We'll have Robert come up and discuss the hotels and the related uses. We'll present what we believe to be a very key, exciting mixed-use village concept in the plan, and then we'll close with a look at the development timing. So starting with the development partnership, Silver Rock Development, LLC, is a joint venture between the Meriwether Companies and the Robert Green Company, which was described by Mr. Spevacek and also in the staff report. I am a local, have lived here in the desert for over 27 years, and 12 years of that proudly as a La Quinta resident. I've done business in the city of La Quinta for over 20 years in development, and we'll be happy to elaborate on the development team's qualifications should any questions come up later. So jumping into the land plan, here we see the site as it exists today. This is a view that would be looking toward the, I guess what would be the southwest. You can see the existing Palmer course, the neighboring or aligning streets, and the vacant property that would be developed, which is parallel sort of to the golf course and the lake system, and then the future public use lands, which we'll discuss in a moment. As we see how the plan overlays on top of the property, the plan is organized into a hierarchy of 12 separate planning areas. So each one of these planning areas, of the 12, we have 8 that are planning components that are part of the private development parcels that we would be developing. It's important to state that each one of these things is a project in and of itself, would be coming back before the council in very exhaustive detail to the Planning Commission, to the City Council, for architecture, site planning, landscape architecture, all the details of development. So we're here to talk about sort of the 25,000 square foot master plan level. The first planning area, of course, is planning area 1. That is the existing Palmer course. You can see where the golfers are, where that lays out. Planning area 2, which is a planned 140-key luxury hotel site, and Robert will describe the vision for that more in a moment. Planning area 3 is a luxury branded residential product associated with planning area 2, again, which Robert will describe in better detail. Planning area 4 is a shared services center that is a idea of complexing front and back of the house services between hotels, and Robert can describe that as well. It's approximately 70,000 square feet, but that includes exterior outdoor space. Planning area 5 is a luxury hotel site, 200 keys. Planning Area 6 is the branded residential product associated with the Lifestyle Hotel. And did I say, I'm sorry, I meant 200 Key Lifestyle Hotel a moment ago for Planning Area 5. The branded residential product associated with the Lifestyle Hotel is 60 homes, but all of them have a lockup, so it's essentially could function as a 120 key extension of the Lifestyle Hotel. Planning Area 9 is an element that we're really excited about that I alluded to a moment ago. This is the mixed-use village. It consists really of two separate planning areas that are bisected by an element that we call the Riverwalk. I'll be back after Robert discusses the hotel uses to talk more about the Riverwalk. But in this area, we envision an entertainment complex. It would be unlike anything that would be here in the valley. It would have several unique types of entertainment and recreational land uses within it. Some of them would be accessible to the public, some would be private. But this area is a key component of the inclusivity of our plan, which is to draw in not just visitors into the Coachella Valley from internationally, but to draw in local residents as well, because we regard Silver Rock as something that is being built for local residents in addition to visitors. In total, there could be a range of 150 to 225 rental-oriented homes in this area, and a range of retail of about 12,000 square feet up to 40,000 square feet, which I will elaborate on in a moment. Finally, in the private development lands, there is the Resort Residential Village. This area is to be developed in 160 homes around a central amenity with a great pool, fitness center, leasing and management office, and other services. The permanent golf club that would be built to replace the Amundsen Ranch House at the time that it's taken out of service and renovated for use as a breakout meeting facility in conjunction with the luxury hotel. And I want to make it clear that we would be renovating that. The city would retain ownership of that facility. And that facility, we understand it's a cultural resource, and it would remain accessible to the public for use for events and operated by the luxury hotel under a management contract. The golf club itself, because of the relationship to the Lifestyle Hotel and its complement of amenities and services, we would expect that it could be this very efficient, neat space that's 5,000 to 5,500 square feet. There are other facilities that we could draw a parallel to in the Coachella Valley where that worked quite well. Example being at Bighorn, there's a dearly loved 5,000 square foot facility that the members use. And that, when I say 5,000 square feet, I want to make sure it's understood that's air-conditioned space. The total space of this building is approximately 16,500 square feet. So that would include the non-conditioned spaces of the tuck-under cart parking that's underneath. We have generous loggia outdoor patio space for outdoor dining, and then a very flexible, large event lawn space that could be used to really grow the capacity at times where there's extraordinary service demands. Then we have Planning Area 10. These are public use parcels that are not part of our transaction. They're retained by the city. Silver Rock was originally contemplated as a 36-hole golf development. We understand that the development of the property may raise questions with respect to the available capacity of the golf course. And as a prudent decision, what we've done is we've allowed in our land plan for a future 18-hole routing to be developed if at a future time it makes sense. So the city would have the opportunity to come back at its sole discretion and make a reassessment of what the golf needs are within the city and how things are working after the hotels are open, and make some decision in terms of the destiny of this land. We have a public park site of 35 acres. This is a holdover from the previous specific plan. This was carried forward as something that was seen as another placeholder that was deemed desirable for the city, both for its long-term park planning needs, but also for interim uses such as parking for special events that are occurring in other parts of the city now. Planning Area 12 doesn't show up as being any specific location. This would be the assorted nits and gnats of acreage associated with the canal. There would be some water well sites and things of that nature, and I think in total it is around 60 acres. The last element of the plan, this is extremely important to us, is the non-vehicular circulation aspect of the plan. We'll have an extensive network of internal connectivity between the elements of this plan, so you could circulate anywhere within the plan in different modes, whether it's hiking, walking, cycling, on a golf cart. You would have opportunities to circulate throughout the plan. And it wouldn't be the typical Class 1 bike trail that's alongside of a street. It'd be a very unique, fun experience. It could be between the development areas and the water. There would be unique experiences along the way. And this trail system we see as having a great degree of connectivity to the city's external trail network. And a couple of years ago when we were here, we talked about how we had studied the fact that the traffic circle was at the geographic midpoint of the city's cycling trail system. And we had all these great trails to the south, and we wanted to find ways, if we could, to connect to the Buhoff Trail and some of the other trails that lead back over to the Bear Creek area. A very important component of the overall wellness philosophy of the project and bringing forward alternative means of recreation, so we have this broad palette of things that appeal to everybody. And with that, I'm going to bring up Robert Green to go through the hotel slides, and I'll be back momentarily to conclude with the mixed-use village and the development plan schedule.
Is there a pointer on that?
No pointer. Is there a pointer on there, Chris? No, it doesn't really work.
Yeah, it'll work. Doesn't work that well. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Robert Green, the Robert Green Company, 3551 Fortuna Ranch Road, Encinitas, California. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to present our concepts for the resort. The hotel, as John said, or the hotel components of the resort are divided into two distinct components, but both of them work together very well. When we first took this project on, we sort of looked at what the market is here in the desert, and as you all know, it's very challenging to build a luxury hotel. In fact, it's challenging to build most any kind of hotel in the desert because of the severe seasonality, et cetera. Oh, this one works too. Thanks. So what we've done is essentially developed a plan that I'd like you to think of as essentially a 340-key hotel divided into two components, a 140-key luxury hotel and a 200-key what we call lifestyle or four-star hotel. In addition to that, the residences associated with the two hotels, 35 residential units associated with the luxury hotel and 60 units associated with the lifestyle hotel. We'll also add hotel product to that inventory. The more likely scenario is that the luxury hotel residential component will be rented not as often because they're single-family homes. But the lifestyle hotel is more of a multifamily product, more closely aligned with the location of the lifestyle hotel. And as John said, we're building these in 2- and 3-bedroom units with lock-offs. So they will actually be built with the full intention of having the owners want to rent them back through the hotel rental program. So again, we're looking at really a base hotel that's essentially 340 keys, plus an additional 120 keys that are possible through the lifestyle hotel's residential piece. So the luxury hotel is 140 keys. It consists of about 123,000 square feet of space. It includes a 3-meal restaurant, a lobby bar, a pool bar, and the main health spa will be adjacent to the luxury hotel. The health spa will be about 11,000 square feet and include about 16 treatment rooms of various kinds. We, in our history, have built a number of luxury hotels and continue to do so. So the concept for the luxury hotel is to do something that feels obviously very upscale, that appeals to the luxury traveler who's willing to spend $500, $600, $700 a night, et cetera, but is looking for a more sort of secluded and very high quality level of service. The health club will also have a fitness center associated with it. But if you can imagine the site, and I won't take the time to go back through all the slides, the luxury hotel is proposed to be on the site of the current 17th hole of the golf course. We would be removing that hole and replacing it with another hole in another location because we feel as though that is probably the most appropriate place on the site for a luxury hotel. We have already had several discussions with several luxury hotel operators, and there's a consensus that that is the right place to put a luxury hotel. These images are not, I want to say, not intended to reflect the architectural style of this hotel. Our architectural style is going to be something that's very, very familiar and very respectful of desert architecture and of the site. One of the reasons we've selected this particular unit count is so that we do not have to build a multi-story building. The luxury hotel is contemplated to be all single-story, all one-level wood frame structures essentially, but think of it as very, very high-quality residential feel. It, of course, will have a central main building where you come to check in, and that main building will have different components, such as the lobby bar, lobby lounge, some small retail shops, those types of uses in it. And then there'll be a pool area and outdoor function space. But again, all of it will be very low-rise, low-key, so that when you're playing golf on the golf course, we don't have a tall building, imposing building in front of your view. The lifestyle hotel, and I want to clarify what we mean by lifestyle. Lifestyle hotels are probably the fastest growing segment of the hotel industry. They appeal largely to what we call millennials, those individuals born between 1981 and 2000. We believe that by the year 2020, more than half of our workforce will be made up of millennials. They will be big spenders over the years. We think that they're going to be very heavily concentrated in places like Southern California and want to spend a lot of time in places like the desert and La Quinta. So this concept is also a high-quality product. This will be a little bit taller, probably 2- and 3-story product. But again, a 4-star hotel and a 4-star experience. So whereas the luxury hotel will be garnering average daily rates in the range of $500 to $700 a night, this will be looking at probably $250 to $325 a night. The 200 keys, again, are complemented by the residential component, which will actually provide us with the ability to have up to 320 keys on this site. The hotel itself equals about 126,000 square feet, so about the same rough size as the hotel, but the rooms are smaller, the luxury hotel. The luxury hotel, for instance, will have guest rooms with about 500 square feet per room, with outdoor space of another 100 square feet or so, whereas the lifestyle hotel rooms will only be about 350 square feet, probably with about 60 square feet of outdoor space. So different product types. It will also have a 3-meal restaurant. It will also have a lobby bar and a pool bar. We see the pool area being really the place to be for this demographic, and really want to attract a lot of people to this property. One of the reasons we placed this property on the far side, or I should say the east side of the golf course, and one of the reasons we essentially connected it with a pedestrian walk to not only the shared services facility, but also the golf clubhouse, and then further down the walkway, the promenade that John will talk about in a moment, is that this lifestyle hotel wants to be part of a real community, whereas the luxury hotel is a little bit more of a respite. Someplace it's a little bit more private. The lifestyle hotel really wants to be in the midst of a lot of activity, a lot of people coming and going, you know, stopping for food, stopping for drinks, etc. There will also be a nightclub at this facility, as well as a fitness center. These just give you some of the images. These are actually images from our other projects, or projects that we are currently developing that are of that lifestyle ilk. So now I'll let John, unless you have any specific questions for me, or we can do those afterwards, I guess.
Just a question, you were talking about the hotel rooms and that. Will you have any suites available as part of the lifestyle hotel and the resort hotel?
Yes, the luxury hotel will have a mix of about 23% suites. The lifestyle hotel is a little bit less. It's about 18%. But again, keep in mind that in addition to those, so that would be 36 units, right? Out of 200 keys, 18% would be 36. We also will have the 60 condominiums next door, which can be turned into,
available for rent.
Which will be available for rent and can literally be turned into an additional 120 suites, if you will.
A lot of options.
Right, and it's intended to be that way, obviously, because we know that a very important characteristic of this project for the city is to generate transient occupancy tax. So wherever we can, we want to make sure that we design product to where it can be utilized for that purpose.
So no matter what somebody wants, it's available.
Right.
Basically.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so I'll spend a few minutes talking about the mixed-use village, which we call the Promenade. This area is something that we're all tremendously excited about. I'm going to present the plan, and then I'll show you some images that we consider to be design inferences. Along the way, we collect file folders electronically nowadays of images that we would consider to be inspirational images. It may not be exactly what something would look like on the site, but it is to try to characterize a feel or an experience. So if you'll forgive the visual hyperbole, we really do regard this as the heartbeat of Silver Rock. This is an area of tremendous energy. It's an area that attracts people in on a daily basis from outside that aren't visitors. People come and go, and there are a lot of different things going on in here that are sort of layered in with each other that feed the other uses and make this a place where people want to be. Starting with the Riverwalk and the Promenade, these are, I guess you'd characterize them as the skeletal system or the backbones of Silver Rock. I can figure out how to... The Riverwalk itself, it's a linear... Oh, I got to point it at myself. The Riverwalk, that's going to hurt. The Riverwalk is a linear water feature. It's approximately 1,000 lineal feet at about 20 to 22 feet wide. It's somewhat deceptive in terms of its scope because it's actually only 3 to 4 feet deep. So in terms of actual water surface area, if you were to put it all together, it'd be less than half an acre of water surface area. But it's an area that's designed to foster and promote a lot of beneficial economic and inclusive activity along it. It's essentially functions as a linear parkway. Along the Riverwalk, we have a whole host of things which I'll run through here. So that's a connection that runs in this direction. It connects the existing lake on the golf course at the same water surface elevation. So conceivably, you could, at times, you could have boat parades and things of that nature on it. The Promenade is a pedestrian parkway that runs from Silver Rock Way, which is right here, all the way down to the water's edge, the current water's edge. The Promenade creates an intersection with the Riverwalk here, which is a key component of building excitement in an area. When you can create corners, there are places where people tend to want to congregate. These are some images of what we would see the character of the Riverwalk being. This is in San Antonio. Obviously, we're La Quinta, California, and not San Antonio. It's a different scale, but we would see a scaled version of this happening, and the type of economic activity that has happened along the Riverwalk in San Antonio has just been phenomenal. It's just a great place for people to go and hang out and stroll and enjoy themselves. These are some photos of some events that we would see happening, typical community functions that we have in the city of La Quinta. We could have stage events there. We have a boat parade shot that's actually, I think, from, it might be from the Naples area of Long Beach where they do something that's very community oriented. The second feature is we plan what we call an iconic element at the end of the promenade that's at the water. And when we say iconic element, we mean something that's visible all the way from Silver Rock Way. It draws the eye, and it's very interesting. It might be something like a kinetic sculpture that responds to air currents on the site. That grounds a seasonal event space. We're looking at things in the nature of something like a beer garden. You could do an indoor-outdoor beer garden that would operate seasonally. It could be a really fun place to go. Again, it could be staged for events. The mixed use and commercial elements of the plan, as you see them appear, they're labeled as M, U, and C. This is an area that we really have studied a lot over the last couple of years with a lot of sensitivity. We realize this is an area of sensitivity in the city. The last thing anybody wants to do, including us, is build more retail space in the city that isn't leasable or isn't leased up. And so we've looked at a way to gradually introduce the retail components into the project, believing that as a destination resort, Silver Rock must have a full complement of things available to the visitor, or it's not competitive in the destination resort marketplace. So we see the commercial component being a range of uses in a combination of mixed use, that is to say a retail use that could occur on the ground floor of a residential product that's above it, that's a highly seasonal rental product. It could be a standalone product, or it could be what we call pop-up, which are temporary things. A pop-up use could be something as simple as a taco cart to something that is there for a week or more. That's a kiosk that gets set up along the Riverwalk. What we would propose to do is ground the initial part of the project with corners. We have mixed-use corners on both ends where we have 400 square feet that could be a coffee shop or a pub. It draws people, this draws people in from up here, this draws people in from here. It's an initial commitment that if it works, we could slowly incubate it and grow it as we march along the ground floor spaces of these residential units. But we could do it in a way where we're not overbuilding, and so the intent is we're not going to go out and build 40,000 square feet of space, hire a leasing agent, say, okay, go lease it up, and then who knows what happens. There's additional mixed use down here along the promenade as you lead to the seasonal event space, and then there's some standalone commercial in here. But if you look at it, all of it carefully tries to exploit this concept of corners and where people want to gather and they feel comfortable. These are some examples of mixed-use product and corner types of product. This is a project in Scottsdale called Kierland. So these are the Kierland Lofts, a very successful residential product, and these are corners down below that have some retail component, and these are the types of uses we could see. Believe it or not, this is actually a pop-up use here, this commercial use.
They sell boxes?
If you want, I'm not sure if they'd sell boxes there. Maybe.
What does it look like?
It is definitely a box. I think it was a Tiffany store, and they were trying to be clever. It looked like a gift. The Riverwalk Lofts are these units that line the Riverwalk, and there are some of them down here. In this plan, I think we've achieved a total around 75 of them. This is a product that averages around 1,000 square feet. It's a very open floor plan. In most cases, it's going to be two-story. There might be three-story pop-ups here and there. And in some cases, as I said, you might have some kind of a mixed-use component on the ground floor. In terms of the imaging for that, we're thinking that the loft spaces could look something like this. They're very warm, they're modern, they're fun places where people would want to stay if they were on vacation maybe as an alternative to a traditional hotel room or something like that. The villas, these are 1,500 square foot, single family detached vacation homes that line the lake area. Again, some envisioning for this. These are smaller, efficient, and modern design spaces. Again, same premise with hiking, cycling, and cart trails, great deal of connectivity. These are some ideas. Wellness would be a big component of this. Some of the trails would be programmed with a wellness component in assistance with wellness professionals. And we see, when we talk about cycling, we see the serious Lycra and spandex set, but we also see people on beach cruisers out there just cruising around, enjoying themselves. Water play, we would like to see some form of water play element out here, and water play to me means something that's a beneficial use of water. It stimulates and generates economic activity as opposed to being some sort of an ornamental use that you look at, nobody ever touches and experiences and enjoys. I think it's a key point. These are examples of that. The one on the top, this is the music center in LA. It's the most fabulous, simple fountain system that consists of a grid pattern of nozzles that come out of the ground, kids play in it, and it has this random pattern that gets programmed into it where you never know when the fountain's going to come on. You see adults and kids in it, and they just scream with delight every time the thing comes on. It's such an attractant to the community to come in. This is something that I think that was one of the best things Cathedral City actually did in their Civic Center, which is their whimsical fountain that I used to take my daughter to when she was little, and kids, again, just love it. And then these are commercial water play elements that are actually things that generate interest in people in coming out to the desert, similar to what Splashtopia did at the Omni Las Palmas. They found a way to really flatten out the trough in their seasonality by building uses that would cause people to come out to the desert in the heat and spend money and enjoy themselves. Agritourism. Agritourism is essentially taking a commercial farming element, doing it on an entertainment scale. This, for me, is a way to celebrate the heritage of the Coachella Valley. We could bring in we could leverage or work with some of the farming interests out here to create a small facility where we're growing some of the heritage crops of the Coachella Valley. We're creating maybe an activity barn. There might be a hospitality component associated with it where people could come in and enjoy some unique experience for a week where they experience some aspect of agricultural production. We could have community gardens here. The chefs at the hotels could have chefs' gardens. And then we might be able to include some sort of a community inclusivity element where we're working with local food banks to create some sort of food product that would backfill some of what their needs are. These are some shots of some agritourism activities. This one is actually a really neat place up in Altadena where you can stay on a 2-acre dairy and you can engage in all kinds of culinary activities there. These are some shots of community gardens. Edible landscaping is a huge emerging concept where people are starting to analyze water use, which is very appropriate. And we spend so much of our water on growing ornamental plants that are beautiful, but they don't offer any sort of a nutrition component, and we could convert some of that. I would like to see if we could do some sort of a pilot project here at Silver Rock and working with some of the local food banks that if it's successful, it could be implemented in other projects in the Coachella Valley, and we could find a way to convert some of our water use to maybe more beneficial use than patches of green that you never see a single person on doing anything.
I love that.
Thank you. Unique land uses, I mentioned those in association with some of the different other uses on the property. I would see what if there was a water play component and you had a vintage Airstream trailer camp with a cantina. And this was part of the ladder of hospitality product at Silver Rock. It offered an opportunity for people that wanted to come here. They were less traditional types. They didn't want to stay in a hotel room. And it's very reflective of the La Quinta experience, embraces the La Quinta experience. That's basically it on the promenade, and I'll move into presentation timeline, which is very brief, and we're finished. So the timeline from here for us. Pre-development, we see occurring, assuming all things go well with the city and we're able to consummate all our agreements and everybody's happy, between January 15th and March of 2016. This is a very intensive period characterized by a lot of design, improvement planning, and approvals. We'll be back before the Planning Commission and City Council with detailed plans for these project components for you to review. Site improvements, if this is sure a schedule, if I can beat it, I'll beat it. But right now, based on the seasonality of being able to get in and make disturbance around the golf course, we're looking at March of 2016. This is about an 18-month period. I would envision about 6 months into this delivering the luxury hotel site graded to Robert so he can start going to town on the luxury hotel while I'm working on other infrastructure. The project components themselves, the luxury hotel, spa, branded residential, and the phase 1 of the shared services center, delivery of fall 2018. We've tried to be conservative in our estimates, but this is something that we didn't want to overpromise and underdeliver. We feel confident that we could make this date. The lifestyle hotel has about a 1-year construction period overlap with the luxury hotel, and we see this being delivered in the fall of 2019. Promenade Mixed-Use Village, phases 1 and 2. We would see the first phase being delivered in the fall of 2019. That would include the promenade and the Riverwalk itself, and probably some of the loft and bungalow product, and maybe some of the retail components. The balance of it coming in 2021, about 2 years later. A lot of construction activity on that site. And the permanent golf clubhouse, there would be a seamless transition from the Amundsen Ranch House into another facility. As I said, the Amundsen Ranch House would be removed from service at some point and renovated for the city as the city retains ownership of it. And so we would need to maintain some sort of an operating presence there. It's possible there could be some interval where we're in some type of a temporary club that's acceptable to the city. I think that the previous developer had operated on a similar basis, but our goal would be to try to deliver the permanent golf clubhouse synonymous with the opening of the luxury hotel. I think those two go hand in hand well. That's the conclusion of the presentation. I appreciate your time, and we appreciate certainly over the last few years it's been this very intensive effort with the council and the staff, and we appreciate all the support, and we're excited about moving ahead.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Staff, have any questions? Of the applicant?
Well, I don't have any questions. I think you guys have done a great job, and you put together this very, very well. You know, you've been working on this, and the city's been working on this for quite a while, and it's kind of been behind the scenes because of challenges we've had with the state of California and the challenges of just negotiating something that everybody can work with. So it's great to be able to bring this to the public, let them see what we've been working on for about a year now, and very excited about this and this coming on board for our city and for you guys. And I just think you guys have done a great job. I appreciate what you've done, brought.
Thanks, Lee. Questions? Just a comment in that I think Terry and I are probably more thankful than anyone because we've been involved with this since the inception. 1990. Working on trying to get the amenities that we need in the future for the city when we purchase Silver Rock and that. Initially, we were only looking at about 200 acres someplace, and when KSL bought into La Costa and then they needed some money, they offered the property to us, and it was great. It was a great buy as far as we're concerned in that. So we're just so happy to see things moving forward, that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that we can see some development out at Silver Rock and that. I think what I have to look at very frankly is we purchased the property for basically 2 reasons in that. There's other reasons, but the basic property was to bring future revenue into the city of La Quinta, and that's so important for the future of our city. And the second is to provide affordable public golf course for our citizens in that. And those are the 2 main reasons why we got did the investment into Silver Rock and that. So long as we keep that in mind, that these 2 features are part of whatever development we go with Meriwether and that these are prime concerns that we have, that golf will be part of the program, and the revenue that whatever is built out there has to provide revenue back to the city, and that's our investment into Silver Rock and that. So, and I know John understands this. We've talked before on this, and those are the two main issues that I focus on. What you've done, I love the luxury hotel, what you've done with the 140 units and that. I think that's a wonderful way of doing it. The lifestyle hotel, I think that's great, and that's what you're proposing, I have no problems with. I think you've done a great job in that. The architect in me comes out and says, hey, for what we're looking at in this area, and that's wonderful in that. But again, we need to recognize that we represent the citizens of the city of La Quinta, and we want to make sure that their input and how they feel about what we're developing here is the proper thing for our growth and what we're doing in the future for our city. So, thank you very much. It was a good proposal. Thank you, John, for putting the program together.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one question. You didn't address, but I know the answer, but for the rest of the folks attending, because there's a hotel, the luxury hotel that's going to be tucked on the 17th, what does that do to the Palmer Golf Course?
Yeah, it certainly is. Obviously, it's a displacement, a disruption in the existing routing. We've been engaged in a discussion with Palmer for some time. That's been interrupted as we've really focused on these transactional things. We look forward to re-engaging with Palmer. We're very confident that can be worked out to the satisfaction of Palmer Design and the city and result in a routing that preserves the high integrity of the golf course as it stands today. And I know it's very important, and Robert would echo this to the luxury hotel operator. We want the best golf course out there that we can get. So that would be an immediate focus. In fact, on the timeline starting in March, that would be an immediate focus, or starting in before the end of the year to re-engage with Palmer Design and resurrect the discussion.
And that would allow us to retain the Palmer name with
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know the city paid a lot of money for the name, and it's a brand, and we're trying to leverage all brands on the site, and that would be one of them, is the Palmer name.
When we celebrated the 10th anniversary of Palmer's Restaurant, and that I had the opportunity to sit with Arnold and his wife, and I asked him, I said, have you looked at what is happening with the Palmer Golf Course? And he said, yes, he had worked with his staff, and he says, we'll work it out with no problems. We'll work with the developer and make sure these changes are done properly, but I still want my name on the course.
Yeah, I love the answer. He's a gentleman, and that's what I would expect him to say.
Yeah.
Oh, I do have a question.
Sure.
Have you gone out to the site, and I'm assuming the answer is going to be yes, but have you gone out on the site in the last couple of days to see what happened in the area that you're talking about locating a luxury hotel?
Yeah, I know that there's a considerable amount of water that comes off the face of the mountains, and we're going to have we have a preliminary hydrology memo. In fact, I bumped into our engineer, RBF is here in the audience, and he mentioned that we'll be re-engaging that, but there's a considerable amount of work that needs to be done on hydrology to improve that site to make sure it's safe, obviously.
A lot of work.
A lot of water, I know.
A lot of work has to be done.
Yeah.
So I think what I like, and you said it, Mayor, when you and Terry, in that part of the vision years ago of this is a destination, it's a beautiful piece of property, it needs to generate revenue for the city, and that vision was well thought, and initial designs were great, and then we had this change of times in terms of the recession and redevelopment and the like, and I think, I commend Meriwether Green on taking what was a great vision, a great site plan, and then enhancing that to fit what today's economy represents and what the future uses of consumers will be. I love the edible landscaping. Again, being on Energy, Environmental, and Conservation Commissions as part of my role here, you tend to be a little bit hypersensitive about those things, and knowing that we can serve potentially our residents with edible food that are, I mean, if we're going to grow stuff, we might as well grow it to eat, right?
Make sure that the bighorn like it too.
Exactly. We need a bighorn park, by the way. I love the promenade. I see activities there. I can see food truck venues there. I can see the vintage trailer component. I see our Golden Voice representative in the audience, and I'm thinking, Coachella and Stagecoach and the like, and how this could enhance the amenities that are available on this property. And I'm just thrilled with the progress we've made, and hope that we can continue that, because this is very exciting, and appreciate all the work of the entire team of what you've come up with, because it will be a unique destination. And as Christy has always promoted, it's inclusive. The goal is this is a gathering place for our residents and Valley residents, while every consumer that wants to come in here and visit our area from a tourism standpoint wants to be there as well. And that integration is what will profit down the road and fulfill the vision that we had for revenue.
Thank you.
And a message to Golden Voice, that 35 acres on the corner, we'd like to work with you on that.
Thank you for your hard work. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean. Oh, Christy,
yes. I just want to reiterate what some of the council members up here have said, and you have worked so hard on this plan, and I remember when you first presented it to me, and I saw the Mercado and the Riverwalk and that synergy that was there, and I thought, wow, this is just going to be great. But it's what we ask of you, I think, that is important to all of us, is that it is inclusive. And it's hard to combine that, to have something that all of our demographics can use, and yet still be very exclusive in certain parts of it. So I think you and Robert have done, and your staff all have done an incredible job. And we've revisited this bad boy so many times.
We have.
So we're ready to go. But just a great job. Thank you so
very much.
Good presentation.
Appreciate that.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
I do have a couple of requests to speak. So again, if you'd come up to the podium when I call your name and give us your name and address for the record. Ken McCrum.
Good evening. Kevin McCune, 49490 Rancho Las Mariposas. I've been waiting for this for a long time. I love Silver Rock. I love everything about it. Now this component and the mixed use, the biggest thing I see here is that the residents, like Linda was speaking to, we're going to have a destination resort with a component that the residents and events that we'll want to go to. And of course, I want to see those other 18 holes built more than anything, but just the whole component, the different layouts, the different strategies, I think it's well thought out, it's well planned. I think we all understand the construction curves, how they come and go, and this economic boom that we're in right now may not last forever. So we need to be ahead of the curve. I'm being facetious, excuse me. We need to be ahead of the curve and get this thing on the board and get it in front of the next boom. Because the ripple down effects of this is going to go across the entire city, not just here. It'll be felt elsewhere. So we need to be ahead of that when it happens. La Quinta is going to be the only destination resort in the valley for golf and other amenities when you build this. Public courses, private. I mean, the private courses are going to come over and play this. The private clubs are going to enjoy this. The public's going to enjoy it. So it's widespread. It's wide open. We just need to get ahead of it and get it moving. So I'm a big fan. If you guys don't build it, I'm moving. Thank you.
Was that a threat?
You got to get off the commission if you do that.
And that Doug Motz?
Doug's still here?
See? He's gone?
Yeah, Doug's gone.
Must have not been too important.
Does that mean as the chamber president, he's thrilled with the potential?
That's what he told me.
Skip page?
He went across the street.
Good evening, Mayor. Can you guys hear me? City Council. My name is Skip Page, and I run a company called Golden Voice, as you guys know. Thank you. It's good to see you. So these guys called me in because they wanted me to speak in support of the project, but hearing all of you, it really doesn't seem like that's needed today. But I will tell you one thing, because little do you know, but I'm the largest purchaser of hotel rooms in the Coachella Valley. This year in 2014, almost 22,000 room nights were purchased by my company, or my travel company called Valley Music Travel. We need more hotels, period. If we want this area down here to grow, the Indio La Quinta area, and you know we're heavily invested in this area, we need a hotel at Silver Rock. The hotels that they're talking to, the operators, are perfect for what we need, and I've already told them I'll rent every room in the month of April from them at the highest price, right? So I think it's needed. We're investing a lot in this area. We have other projects in the city of La Quinta that surround that area that are relying on this. We need to do this now. And I know things go slow sometimes, and I've been out here for 15 years, and I've heard Silver Rock for a long time. It needs to happen before these guys get scared or something else happens. We need to approve this thing, and I think it's really important. So I just wanted to come and give my support. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay, thanks, Skip. Anyone else? That's all I have. Request? Okay, well, again, thank you very much for your presentation and that, and thank you all for being here. We enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to reports and informational items and that.
Shelley.
There she is. How are you? Good to see you again. Haven't we? Yes. It's taken so long, but we do need it. Yeah.
I wanted to say something. You want to do the...
Yeah, right. Okay, Linda?
A brief report on my committee meetings. Number one, the Conservation Commission. I think we covered that in our sheep discussion, because that was the majority of the meeting. Energy, environmental.
If I can, it sounds like you had some good support too from other cities.
Absolutely. When he started out with, he started talking about the geography really from like Borrego Springs down to the Mexican border and where his monitoring's been happening. And I went, wait a minute, we're talking about Silver Rock and La Quinta and that area. And they're like, we haven't done anything really since 2010. There was a helicopter crash, and it spun out from there. And with the assistance from the resident that provided several questions that were very relevant, I had shared some of those questions with Kathy DeRose actually at his request, and so she started asking questions, and then Coachella and then Indio. They all pretty much said we're not acting on anything without current data, and we can't fund this without current data, and no solutions, no offering of solutions. So anyway, that'll be continued. Katie has done a great job representing, and I know that she's kind of between a rock and a hard place because they've got to fulfill that, but she understands our position. Energy, environmental. There's an upcoming energy summit, so they're working on that to present some new ideas. Salton Sea will be part of that discussion, and I actually have CVB this Friday for the first time. We've been on hiatus since July, so that's my report.
Christy?
Yes, sir. The California JPIA Executive Committee approved revisions to memorandums of liability coverage, workers' comp, employer's liability, property coverage, and cyber liability coverage. If any of you really want that information or more information on it, Terry Derringer has all the details. I didn't want to get too far into it. My animal campus meeting was canceled because of 8 feet of mud.
Yes. Out there, 1,000 pounds.
Yes, it was. But I did want to mention that there's a rabies distemper parvo clinic, and it will be Saturday, October the 4th, from 9 to 11 in the City Hall, that's good, City Hall South parking lot. And I assume this is on our website, Edie?
We'll check, we'll make sure it is. If it isn't, we'll make sure it is.
Okay, thank you. The Coachella Valley Mountains Conservancy, they provided a local assistance grant to Friends of the Desert Mountains for acquisition of 5 acres in the Edom Hill Conservation Area and another 5 acres in the San Jacinto San Bernardino Mountains Wildlife Movement Corridor. So that's what took place at that meeting. And then also, as I'm sure you all know about the 2014 water bond, which is not the first one, but the second one that came down. And if that passes, we will, the CV MC will get $10 million for multi-benefit water quality, water support, and watershed protection. Now, what the legislature is asking for is they want to see if we're giving money or grants like we have been in the past, they want it to see it affect more than one thing. In other words, let's see, they want projects that are collaborative, multi-benefit projects that implement more than one objective of the water plan. For example, a habitat restoration project that also has flood control benefits and open water space or open space acquisition that protects natural aquifer replenishment. So they've kind of drilled that into the bill, and they're going to just tighten up, I think, a little bit of how we spend our money. Their water plan calls for integrated water management, which is best exemplified by multi-benefit projects that fulfill the main plan objectives of improving public safety, fostering environmental stewardship, blah, blah, blah. So again, they're just, the state is just going to be a little bit more, or they would like for us to be a little bit more in tune with when we provide grants to have multi-benefits. And one of the things that they asked too was they want to be able to reach out to various, they being CBMC, reach out to various cities, counties, state, and federal agencies, and they wanted a representative. They wanted someone on the board like myself to give them the name of a representative in our city that they could contact if they need more assistance they're trying to prevent repeated inquiries to busy staff members at our agencies. In other words, they would rather not be transferred from one person to another, just have one person on staff that they could call. And I volunteered Chris. I already told him. I also told him that he could pass that bad boy off if he wanted to somebody else. CVEP I have tomorrow morning. The Jacqueline Cochran Regional Airport Authority, their air show for this year is October the 25th. Usually it's the first Saturday in November, but they had to move it because of some other activities that were conflicting.
So it's back here.
It is, yeah. And then next year we won't have it. Hammett has it, and go back and forth. And then one thing that I wanted to report on too is that Lee and I, you so proudly selected us for a subcommittee on economic development. Anyway, we've had 2 meetings with different commercial brokers. Very, very good input that we've received from that. And so we met with Maggie Montez and Brian Ward was our first meeting, and a couple of things we got out of that was they said, just remember that retailers are not pioneers. Right. They've got it down and they were going. One thing we've heard from both our meeting with Maggie Montez and our second meeting was with Wilson Johnson and Jack Tarr's representative, was that when big brands come into the desert, they basically want to be Mid-Valley, Palm Desert, so they can get...
I recognize that with Nordstrom's and Red Lobster.
Yeah, well, so they can get Palm Springs, and but they both groups did say that if they were going to cannibalize was the word they used, put a second shop in somewhere, that we are like #1 on the list. So I thought that was really good. Positive. Yeah, good news to hear. Maggie Montez said that as a council, we should reach out to major retailers once a year. That means a face-to-face visit. Yeah. And I think her statement was intended for us not to think of that lightly, right? Not to pass it off to anybody else, that we really needed to.
Yeah.
She talked about, and if I can,
No, go ahead.
the West Coast ICSC meeting in San Diego, to be able to make appointments with those folks at that, just 20 minutes. Or,
But no booth for us.
Yeah,
Right,
the booth isn't worth it. You got to be able to have pre-scheduled meetings with these folks, and that's a great place to do it. And both of them talked about that ICSC in San Diego, just to have preset appointments and sit down and talk with them.
Yeah, that's how we did it years ago.
Yeah, we didn't have.
We spent a lot of hours with various developers.
Yeah, we never had a booth.
And Maggie said that we could use her space.
Yes, she did.
To interview people, just to let her know ahead of time if we wanted to make some appointments. And then just a little bit more on our meeting with Wilson Johnson. Mike Mead was there. And the one thing I really liked that came out of that meeting, and that is their marketing director, whose name is Carol Hickman, is going to provide a monthly update report and corresponding brochure for all of our firm's listings within the city on a monthly basis.
Yes.
That is just
start receiving
priceless.
those.
Yeah, that is really good. And then Mike also said he would keep Les informed as he does any negotiations and signs new tenants, so we know right away you know, who's coming. And they're looking forward to meeting it. They really liked
It was
this.
a great meeting. Both of
They're
them were
wealth
meetings.
of information, those folks,
Well,
they
it's
know.
interesting thing that came out too at these meetings regarding routes here in the Bay. Maggie Montez, after they were hired, I believe, first for 6 months and then let go, never met the owner. The owner wouldn't meet them. So
There's a trend.
he hired another group that I think Wilson Johnson was working with. They have yet to meet the owner. So he's bringing these people in, and no one has yet to meet the owner. He's just not meeting with them. So as we have discussed with our staff, it's a heck of a challenge trying to get to that owner and find out what he needs and find out, you know, where that property is going when he won't even meet his own representatives, real estate professionals.
It is encouraging, though, to me anyway, that where the Rouse is, they do have Wilson Johnson now as their leasing agent, and they didn't before. And Mike Mead and, of course, Scott Wilson are very, we keep it oriented.
Yes.
I'm just,
That's a step forward.
oh, you know that we're establish this line of communication. You know what's really great, though, too, is that I feel like with any of the four of them, I can pick up the phone because it has face-to-face and say, oh, what's going on?
I've worked with Maggie at the hospital, so that's, yeah.
Nice idea to do this, it's been great.
Question, maybe Edie, on the commercial, the broker listing thing. I know when we did the new website, it was a big push from the realtor side to have a section so that people can go there as they're surfing about La Quinta and find homes. I mean, would it be relevant to have the commercial listings as well for those people? So if the brokers have yet another means to go to this listing, they're also seeing all the other fabulous things that are happening in La Quinta. I mean, I don't know if that's something Maggie would, or if it already exists, that it's just a link to that, if we're going to be getting some kind of bulk information.
Yeah. Both of the groups also, in talking about Old Town, both of them mentioned the issues of parking. Both of them. Sure. And, you know, we've had our own studies, and we based on our studies, show we have plenty of parking. And whether that's communicating better to them that if there is parking, and here it is, and how it's supposed to work, or do we need to look at other options to increase parking over there?
But one of the things that a lot of the merchants in Old Town and in the village, one of the things that most of them do not do is have their employees park on the outskirts.
Right.
And the employees get there, they take prime spots, and that's it.
And their customers can't get it.
That's right. So there needs to be a parking, parking plan put together that they buy into when they.
I think it's very important too, based on what we heard from the real estate professionals.
And without the parking lot across the street, they'd be in deep trouble.
Right.
Well, I think you're right. I think there might be a perception that we haven't thought about yet. We want to right now.
Okay.
Anyway, great idea.
Terry?
We're doing things every 2 weeks.
Yep.
Like clockwork.
Our next one's on the 25th.
I actually had a very slow period of time through most of July and August. I had I brought in Riverside County Transportation Commission's budget, and then I also had a report that they sent out to each of you so that I didn't have to sit here tonight and talk about it, and nobody out there had to hear about it. I did want to thank the mayor and staff members and Frank for staying on top of legislation going on in Sacramento for these couple of months that, you know, we've kind of, a lot of us been out playing around doing other kinds of things, and but they still got the letters out and signed and up there, and I thought that was really great.
That was important.
Yeah, it was, and it's, you know, it may not sound like we get much accomplished that way, but we just have to stay on it.
Every little bit helps.
Yeah, every little bit. And I did not go to the convention, so I don't have a report there, and I know that Linda, I think, was the delegate, appointed delegate, so.
It was one of them.
Yeah. So.
I was going to do a
Thanks.
comment.
Yeah.
Council comments.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Lee?
Yes, sir. The Desert Sands meeting, we'll schedule that soon, and meet with Desert Sands coming up shortly. Regarding Imperial Irrigation and the ECAC meeting, we had a special meeting last week regarding the new integrated resource plan with IID and the Power Department, and their proposal of an investment of $1.2 billion over the next 5 years. And I'll go over some of the details. It's kind of interesting. The aspect of review of the plan of $1.2 billion over 5 years was brought to us around 7 o'clock that evening. So understand that most of us had already been working for 12 hours, and then you're going to give us a $1.2 billion plan. So that was a bit frustrating. But nonetheless, it's a pretty aggressive plan regarding, you know, updates on their equipment and their turbines and their solar projects and everything else. Their renewable resource schedule is right on line with the laws. Right now, they're a little more than 20% of renewable. In 2014-16, they'll be 25%. 2017-20, they'll be at 33%. So they're right on track on all the renewable resource requirements. They do need to spend that money. A big part of that $1 billion is transmission lines. There's a lot of push of transmission lines coming in from Arizona through, you know, the service area, and some of it going into San Onofre as well. One of the challenges they have is that if they don't do these improvements to their transmission lines, then the ISO, the California group, can take over. Because if they don't protect their position, then the state can do it for them. And they're very worried about that. As you know, the big blackout that happened 3-4 years ago, and the fine that was imposed by the federal group really was about putting $9 million back into their infrastructure. And part of that is a battery program for all the power generated by the solar groups. The solar power is very challenging. I mean, they all talk about cloudy days, and I don't know how many cloudy days we get in this desert, not that many, but it's still off and on, so to speak, the power coming out of these solar farms. So if they want to create this large battery system that brings in that power to give it more of a unified source and to the users. So that was pretty good. They talked about the program to purchase power going into the future, that it has been running a loss for over 6 years, so they're trying to change how they structure their power or purchase the power, from whether it be natural gas or updating their own turbine systems.
Are they doing any geothermal?
You know, that's one thing they didn't talk about at all. There was not one item of discussion regarding geothermal in their big
They've got that lithium
plan.
sitting right there in the Salton Sea.
But the article in the paper over the weekend indicated that geothermal is so expensive.
It is.
And that's the issue too, because I've talked to geothermal groups.
You know, as far as adding any new.
Yeah, IID is not buying any geothermal energy, none at all. All that's either going to Southern Cal Edison or Pacific Gas and Electric. So, though that's their answer to the Salton Sea issues, they're not buying any of it. And so the lithium issues, again, they didn't even talk about that at all.
I thought for some reason that lithium was a byproduct of geothermal.
It is. It's coming up in the brine. you know, and the brine that's being traded with the geothermal,
Well, they
there's
could
quite a
pay
bit
for
of
a lot
that.
if they would sell the lithium
Yeah.
and things like that.
And just for some reassurance, a lot of that $1 billion is going to be spent up here in Coachella Valley in updating, again, the transmission lines and the substations. They're looking at, you know, some spare parts for substations just to have online if they need it. So there is quite a bit of investment here in the desert, up here in the Coachella Valley. So it was a good meeting, got over about 9:30 that night after looking at their $1 billion. And then the CVAG Homelessness Committee, I have that meeting tomorrow. So I'll have a report on that at our next.
You have good news to report to them, don't you?
Yes, I do, yes.
Well, we
And
have been making,
hopefully we won't
without
be
any
that.
recognition.
Yeah, it was good to see the article in the paper this morning, so we'll see how that shows. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I haven't had any meetings. Sunline, we're having a retreat tomorrow in Indian Wells. First time that we've ever had a retreat. And I'm not sure, they asked us some questions how we felt about things, but I haven't seen an agenda, so who knows? It's going to be interesting. That's all I have. So let's move on to department reports. City manager?
I have nothing to report.
City attorney?
Nothing to report.
City clerk?
Yes, council members, I just wanted to note 2 upcoming dates you might not yet have on your calendar. One is September 18th at 5 p.m. There's a candidate orientation at City Hall. And September 25th, there's a candidate forum hosted by the Chamber of Commerce at 6 o'clock at City Hall.
What's the first one, a candidate forum?
No, the first one is a candidate orientation.
Oh, orientation.
Yeah.
What date is that?
That's September 18th, Thursday.
Oh, it's not on the calendar then?
No,
Okay.
it's post-printing. So that's September 18th, 5 p.m.
Did you wish for some of us to be there?
Optional. Yeah.
If you want to attend.
But you're not locking your door once they get in the room, are you?
Of course, they're
I'm going to be there.
Nobody's checking you coming in.
Yes.
So anyway, I wanted to announce those because they came up after the calendar was printed.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Susan. Department reports from any of our staff? Nobody's jumping up. Somebody have a question?
Let's see. Well, Susan, were you going to go on the police dinner's choice?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, because I do have a question or a comment for Tim, too. So on Tim, I just want to say good report. I like the go request dollars by the month. That's helpful to just understand, unfortunately, how much money we're spending on repairs.
Right.
The reports are good. I mean, I don't have any specific questions. I just,
okay.
Yeah, well, tracking those things, and love the pie chart always, but I just, yeah.
And the surveys continue to be really positive. People like the program, so hopefully more and more are finding it.
Can I come in on this
Sure.
just for a second? Did you see the note that we received? And I mentioned earlier that we're getting some letters on why their street hasn't been cleaned yet.
Right.
And I talked about the safety issues. Did you see the one that came in that there was an implied statement there that she never sees street sweepers?
Well, yes, she hadn't.
It was implied that she's never seen them, and could we, get street sweepers?
Right. Yes, I did see that one.
You did? Okay.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that you'll probably somehow or other communicate with her.
Absolutely.
Now.
Yeah. Yes.
One cut me off on 54 today, so I had to wait because he was making a U-turn in the middle of the street.
I don't know how you would miss them because I think we have 6 or 7 going at any one time. A lot of it's early morning, but still, they're out there, definitely.
If I can.
Sure.
Tim, I talked to you last week, Thursday, and I was with a gentleman driving around Quinta looking at what's going on. And when I had seen him earlier in the morning, he was extremely upset that we weren't doing enough to clean the roads.
Right.
And then he and I drove around. I talked to you a little bit.
Right.
And we could see all your equipment out there.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's out there working on
Right.
the roads, and he didn't say a word out there. Good.
That's good to hear.
So it was great to show him, you know, you guys are working real hard. And I want to commend you guys, too, on last week. I mean, you guys really went through an awful lot last week, and I really want to commend you on your hard work.
Great, thanks. I'll pass that along to the maintenance
Hey,
staff.
Tim, when they start talking about that, how many miles of roads do we have in our city?
It's 121 miles, I believe, of public roads that we have, and, you know, some of them are multi-lane. A lot of them are multi-lane,
You can't do all those in one day.
No, you can't, and unfortunately, no, we need to.
Understand.
Yeah.
I think we ought to send this information to Mr. McGuire.
Oh, jeez. Tim's
I have
buddy.
no comment.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to
Mr.
Mayor and
Mayor.
Council members' items.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, there's one more clerk issue, and that is the annual police dinner you have every year. We have 3 dates proposed for you, November 11th, November 12th, and November 13th. So we'd like some direction as to whether either of those would work for the council.
What day, Tuesday, Wednesday?
Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
So with Veterans Day happening on the 11th, will that be a problem if City Hall closed that day? Because we're having our normal ceremony, but that would be later in the evening. That's fine.
Right.
I cannot do, or prefer not to do Thursday the 13th. I think there's planning commission that evening too, right, on Tuesday the 11th, or no, because of veterans?
If it's not a holiday, it's a scheduled date. Yes.
We'll check.
We can go the 12th, Wednesday? I'm fine with the 12th.
Wednesday works? Yeah.
Wednesday works for me.
Without looking at the calendar, I don't
Yeah,
know.
right.
Gotta have a calendar in front of me.
Okay, Wednesday, November 12th, 6 to 9 p.m. All right, thank you very much.
Good. All right, move on to Mayor and Council members' items. Anybody?
Yeah, just one, in regards to these dates, just to let you guys know, I understand the Employee Appreciation Dinner has been set for October 27th. I will be out of town that day. That was known at the time that date was scheduled, but that was the only date that it worked for everybody other than me. So just to let you know, I won't be there, and that was aware at the time. And it is what it is. I mean, we had to, get the majority of the folks there. So I won't be there, and you know why.
I just want to...
I'll be in South Dakota.
You're going to be hunting.
Those poor deer, is it deer that you're going to?
Pheasant.
Pheasant. Shake them up.
All I do is scare a lot of them.
I had the opportunity to attend the League of California Cities meeting in LA a couple weeks ago, and I just wanted to commend Frank, Chris, and Cindy, our consultant, on an outstanding presentation. And they worked hard to create a catchy title that held up in a room at 8 a.m. in the morning when General Assembly didn't start until like 9:45 that day or 10. Had about 80 people in the room. It was very participatory, it was very interactive, there were props, and it was really about telling our story of overcoming so much. And I think that we're going to work on sharing that story again in the not too distant future, because when you think about what we've been through and where we're heading, it's phenomenal. And it was really an opportunity for other cities to share in their challenges and or to have the optimism of being able to achieve the impossible, because that's how we've kind of felt that what we've overcome in some capacity. So good meeting overall. The general delegation was one resolution. It was kind of very, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But it was nice. The weather was very sticky and humid down in LA, but the LA Live area was kind of happening. It was pretty fun the way they've changed things. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Linda. I had two things. I was asked to speak before the Lady Realtors of the Coachella Valley. They invited Palm Springs, Palm Desert, and La Quinta, and that. I had about 100 ladies there asking questions, but thank Frank and our staff for putting together the development, because that's one of the things they wanted to know was the growth, construction growth here in the city of La Quinta. And they were very receptive to all three cities in that of what we put together. So I wanted to thank staff for putting all this information together for me. The second thing is thank the City Council. I think we had a great program, the 9/11 program the other night. I think well over 100 people were there. The reports and good press afterwards of what we had done. We're the only city in the valley that recognized 1/11 with a program like that. So thank you all for being there, and thank staff for their participation in putting the program together. So
and the Cove,
it was great.
The Cove Association, right? For
yeah. Had the Licking High School band there. They played great.
Yeah.
And wasn't there looking for funding
the Wind Symphony.
Yeah, the Wind Symphony.
Yeah,
specifically the
Winds.
No
to talk to Edie. Contact Edie.
They're going to perform
a grant program.
March of next year, Carnegie Hall.
Yeah, I suggested grant program for them as well.
$35,000 for that.
Yeah. No, it was a good program in that. I think did a good job. Okay, that's all we have. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved in second. Please vote. Please vote.
You did?
Oh, you did? Okay. Motion passes unanimously. At this point, then, we will move on to successor agency.
The successor agency. That's it.
Okay, at this time, I'll call to order the special meeting of the successor agency to the La Quinta Redevelopment Agency for Tuesday, September 16, 2014. Let it be known that all agency members are present. We have no closed session. A public comment. Anybody wishing to speak on an item or on the agenda or off the agenda can do so at this time. Seeing none, we'll move on to confirmation agenda. Any changes by staff? No. By agency members?
No.
Okay. Consent calendar?
Move consent calendar. Second.
Okay, moved and second. Please vote.
I did.
Motion passes unanimous.
Second.
Nothing else available, so it's been moved in second. Please vote.
Done.
Motion passes unanimously. We're
Would you
adjourned.
like to have these back for tomorrow?
Yes, happy.
I get to keep.
I didn't get a chance to look at it.
Well, you just voted on it.
Oh, did I? I didn't recognize what you were looking at. Oh, yeah, can I take a look at it? I'd like a chance to look through it.
It's just so hard to read because it's so small that read it.
Okay, let me look at it. I'll get back to you.